Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Chairman.
I will call on my chaplain, Father Bott, to do morning prayers.
Thank you, Chairman.
Amen. O God, creator and ruler of all, we ask your blessing on the members of this county council who have been called to show care and responsibility to the community. We pray that they may have wisdom, patience, and the ability to listen to each other and to the needs of others and the desires of those they represent, that through their dedication and hard work, this county may duly prosper and the life of all people enhanced. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ the Lord.
Amen. Amen.
Heavenly Father, as we pray for this county, for this council, so too we ask you to open our eyes and our ears to the needs of the wider world. And we pray in particular for the peace to prevail in Ukraine, that those who serve justice and right may prevail, and that the weight of the oppressor may be lifted from them. We ask this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. I invite you, if you wish to join in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, everybody. Please be seated. As I previously said, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our annual general meeting of Staffordshire County Council. We'll go straight into the agenda. Item 1, election of chairman of the County Council. May I have members' nominations for the election of a chairman of the County Council? Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. Gives me great personal pleasure to nominate as the chairman of the council, Councillor Paul Snape. I've known Paul for over 30 years. During his distinguished policing career, we both worked together. And I think in the force, he certainly, as I'm sure other police officers would agree, he gained a reputation as a real doer. He got things done. He served communities well. I could talk all day about various initiatives and policing operations that I know that Paul ran, some of them in quite hostile environments, it's fair to say, and also some carrying some risk, not only risk to the organisation, but some personal risk. But I have to say, once you saw that Paul's name was next to the operation, it made you recognise that you were obviously in safe hands, very similar to the way that he guides this council. It would be remiss of me, whilst talking about his police career, not to mention his long commitment to and dedication to the Federation. The Police Federation acts as an advocate and supports officers and their families through some traumatic and difficult times. And I know for a fact that there are many ex-colleagues of ours that owe Paul a huge debt of gratitude for the help that he gave them. What members might not know is that the policing wasn't his first calling. In fact, he trained to be a Catholic priest and travelled to various places where the calling was, including, I understand, Malawi, where he worked in a leper colony. So quite a diverse experience. I know that he's enjoyed the last 12 months and he's presided over all sorts of events, numerous commitments and ceremonies. And together with his wife, Sue, I think we'd all agree they've been exemplary ambassadors for this council. And for that reason, it's my pleasure to nominate Councillor Paul Snape as the chairman of this council for the forthcoming year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councillor Angela, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It is our honour and pleasure to second Councillor Paul Snape's nomination as the incoming chairman of Staffordshire County Council for the 2022-2023. Thank you, Paul, for your dedication and hard work. Paul has been an excellent chairman in the last 12 months, keeping us all in order at our council meetings, and I'm sure we can expect the same for the forthcoming municipal year. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations? It has been proposed and seconded that I be appointed as Chairman of the County Council for the ensuing year. Is that agreed? Any to the contrary? Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Councillor Spender and Councillor Edgeler for those lovely words they said about me. It made me feel very, very humble. But I'd also like to thank all the councillors in this council for the support they've given me over the last 12 months. It is so appreciated. And I hope I can ask for your continued support for the next 12 months. I'd like to particularly also pay thanks to the officers of this council, particularly Councillor Mike Bradbury and Councillor Kirsty Fenton, who have been my rocks throughout. There are at least two previous chairmen in the council here who know that without those officers you would struggle and perhaps fail. So it is great to have the support of all the officers. I'd like to thank my vice chairman, and I hope that shortly you will re-elect him also as vice chairman for the next 12 months.
Fingers crossed.
And to my wife Susan, as Councillor Spencer has said. Yes. Independent. My wife Susan for the support she's given me. And at the start of every meeting we have the Reverend Bott here with us. It is wonderful, and he's been so supportive throughout the year, particularly in relation to the Chair's civic service. So from myself and Susan to everybody, thank you for the support you've given us over the last 12 months. Are there any apologies for absence?
Mr. Chairman, we have received apologies from the following members: from Jeremy Pert, from Bernard Peters, from Mike Sutherland, and from Ian Wilkes. But is Councillor Wilkes with us today? You are here. You are here. We did think so. Yes, we thought we recognised you on the room. So yes. Claire.
Councillor Hookfield, thank you very much. Are there any further apologies from anybody?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on another year for me. Right, stand to attention on parade. Jason Jones is not here, so could put his apologies in, please.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare an interest? I have a declaration to make, and I make the same declaration on behalf of Councillor Spencer and Councillor Sutton. In the remuneration and standards panel that we're forming, Mr. Eddie Barnett is a former police colleague of ours. We know him personally. We've all worked with him, so we'd like that please recorded. Are there any further? I move that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 17th of March 2022 be signed as a true record. Is that agreed? We now move to members' nominations for the appointment of the Vice Chairman of the County Council. May I have members' nominations, please?
I propose Councillor Phil Hewitt, and I'd like to say, Mr. Chairman, it is my pleasure and honour to nominate Councillor Phil Hewitt to be Vice Chair of this County Council for the forthcoming year. Phil has many business talents which he brings to this County Council. He's been an excellent Vice Chair over the last 12 months. He promised to work with and support the newly elected Chairman of the County Council, Councillor Paul Snape, in 2021-2022, to which, true to his word, he has done, even though sometimes it has been sitting in a position from a wheelchair. Thank you, Phil, for being there when the Chairman needed you. Therefore, it gives me great pleasure to nominate Councillor Phil Hewitt to serve as Vice Chair for the ensuing municipal year. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very, very much, Chair. And thank you, Phil Hewitt, for your first year as Vice Chairman of this County Council. You have been hugely committed despite the issues, I suppose, that you've had over the last year or so. And you've always been a great support to members in this chamber. So it is my great pleasure to second you for Vice Chairmanship of this County Council for the ensuing year. Thank you very much.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, it has been proposed and seconded that Councillor Phil Hewitt be appointed as Vice Chairman of the County Council for the ensuing year. Is that agreed? Thank you. Chairman's correspondence. Nexus LFT testing service. Since the start of the pandemic, local authorities and their partners have played an extraordinary role in supporting the COVID-19 pandemic response. Nexus Trading Services, on behalf of Staffordshire County Council, created its own community testing team to deliver asymptomatic testing to the general population, whilst adopting at pace throughout, making it possible to test disproportionately impacted and undeserved members of our community. The service requirements continually varied in line with changing guidance and demand. The community testing team grew week on week, peaking at approximately 180 staff members during the height of the pandemic. The teams on the ground grew with the project, agile and willing to work in uncertain times to get the job done. Initially, the community teams started with supporting the education sector, delivering testing and training within secondary schools, while creating and developing venue-based testing teams across the county, in carefully considered locations to reach as many residents as possible. As the project evolved, the teams were on the ground delivering door-to-door mobile testing using 4x4s and trailers, right through to supporting the PCR process and deliveries to where and when the tests were required, the most to the most vulnerable. The commitment, resilience and support shown by the community testing team has been fantastic, especially during the periods of high demand. We wish to thank you for the invaluable work undertaken during this time, throughout the ever-changing picture. With your support and seeing it through to the very end, we delivered over 153,000 supervised tests and distributed 156,000 home test kits to residents when they needed us most. I understand that Donna and Laura from the testing service are with us today in the public gallery. On behalf of the Council, may I thank you and your colleagues for your commitment and support throughout the pandemic, and wish you all the very best in your future venues. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Mark Winnington.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I first of all, slightly late in the event, put forward an interest in Nexus, as I'm one of the non-executive directors. I couldn't let this moment go past without saying my personal thanks to the teams. I noticed Claire, the Chief Exec's, in the gallery as well. The amount of work, pressure they were under, obviously in the middle of the pandemic, and the foresight and innovation and resilience that was shown was brilliant. These guys would take a van and then eventually a four-wheel drive and a horse box, basically, to take the message out to people that they need to test. And we've all seen the marquees round and about and different areas. They did a brilliant job under what can only be described as very difficult circumstances. And as I say, as a director of Nexus, I'd like to say thank you very much to you guys for what's been done. And please pass the message on to the rest of the team. Thank you.
Councillor Mark DeVille, please.
Chairman, thank you. And it's great to see Donna and Laura and Claire with us today, Chairman. And Councillor Winnington's right, they did a tremendous job. They offered us all great reassurance at a time when we needed that reassurance, Chairman, at an extremely difficult time. And to say that they went the extra mile, I think, is the understatement of the morning. They did a tremendous job. They did what we do in Staffordshire, Chairman. They absolutely got on with the job, and I share Mr. Winnington's thoughts and thanks to the whole of the team. If you'd pass it on to the whole of the team. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Petition 20 mph speed limit in League Town. We now move on to agenda item 7. Consideration of the petition seeking a 20 mph speed limit in League Town Centre. Firstly, I would like to invite Roger Warrilow as lead petitioner to come to the front of the chamber to address the council. Mr Warrilow will have 5 minutes to put forward the petition. I would also remind members that in accordance with paragraph 13.3 of procedural standing orders, 15 minutes will then allocate for debating the petition. Prior to that 15 minutes starting, I will call Councillor David Williams, who will have the right to respond. And what I do ask is that when we have the 15 minutes, people don't try and hog it by having the full 5 minutes. If you could limit any speeches to 2 or 3 minutes to give more people the opportunity to speak, I'd be most appreciative. Okay, Mr Warrilow, please.
Thank you. There you go. It's all yours. Right. I'm speaking now. Right. Thank you. Excuse me. Leader of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, please excuse my voice. I hope you can hear everything I have to say. I'm here to back up my petition for a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in Leek Town Centre with some facts. I'm speaking on behalf of the Leek people, the Leek and District Civic Society, and 20's Plenty for Staffordshire. 10 years ago, Staffordshire County Highways Department removed Leek Town Centre roundabout. There was no heritage assessment in a conservation area. The roundabout worked. It was efficient and safe, with no record of any accidents before its removal. The Highways Department replaced the roundabout with a pedestrian shared space. Unfortunately, with traffic lights. You do not have traffic lights in a shared space. This area is now avoided by people with eyesight problems and people with disabilities. The people of Leek had a referendum to keep the roundabout. The result was 4-1 to secure, but it was demolished regardless. Since then, Leek has suffered with traffic and safety issues. We do deserve better. A 106 planning agreement stated that Sainsbury's Superstore would not open until the road alterations were completed. However, 10 years later, the T-junction at the top of St. Edward Street is still not completed or even started, which is also in the centre of Leek. Also not finished, zebra crossings and not provided in the right places. Since then, Leek has had several road deaths and many accidents. The excuse from Staffordshire County Council is that there is no money, though there is no excuse as Sainsbury's were paying for the alterations. People in metal-cased coats, warm and dry, and sitting safely belted in a comfortable car seat, may be exceeding a speed limit, as against a pedestrian walking in their wool coats over their vulnerable bodies. No question who is most at risk whilst exploring our historic market town and shops. With the new town planning highway systems forced upon us, not finished and all the mistake, Leek pedestrians are more at risk, not only in the town centre, but due also to extra increased traffic rat runs, trying to avoid the town centre chaos. Leek topography means either road traffic is accelerating uphill or speeding downhill towards traffic lights. And there is a considerable increase in air pollution since the loss of the roundabout. Fact, it is interesting that there is 25% less air pollution at 20 miles an hour as against 30. We do deserve better. More facts, car braking distance at 20 miles an hour is just 6 meters, but in a van it's 12 meters. Car braking distance at 30 miles an hour is 14 meters, more than double. A van is 23 meters. I would like to think that councillors would consider Leaktown's safety to become a spearhead for a 20 miles an hour speed limit in Staffordshire. This 20 mile an hour speed limit would save lives and life-changing traffic accidents, road congestion, road repairs, stability of buildings, noise pollution, air pollution, and national health issues. Leek needs a safe environment for its main industry, which is tourism, which is people. 20 miles an hour equals 20% less casualties. It is a win-win decision to save lives and people's health and security in their towns and villages. A 20 mile an hour speed limit, please, because we do deserve better. Thank you.
Mr Warrilow, thank you. I invite Councillor David Williams to respond.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the petition, which, added together over several petition periods, has been allowed to come to Council today so that we can debate the real political idealism that is the 20s Plenty Group's actions and the actual financial and unfounded and unrealistic costs that the 20s Plenty Group make. Staffordshire County Council does take road safety extremely seriously and recognises local concerns about drivers travelling at inappropriate speeds throughout all of our communities. Staffordshire maintains one of the safest highway networks in the country and targets available resources at road safety interventions that have the greatest impact. Most importantly, we liaise with our local communities to understand their individual aspirations and work collaboratively to tackle any road safety concerns. Our wider suite of road safety interventions includes a robust programme of targeted engineering schemes, including speed limit restrictions where required, support for communities to install speed indication devices, and engagement with the Staffordshire Safer Roads Partnership to deliver road safety training and education and community speed watch activities. I've also spoken with the Staffordshire Safer Partnership, who have actually said that enforcement of 20 miles an hour zones is not currently a viable option. All speed limits in Staffordshire are implemented in accordance with the current national guidance, which is setting out local speed limits, DFT Circular 01/2013. This guidance only advocates the use of 20 mile an hour speed limit or zones where pedestrians and cyclist movements are important and need highlighting. Hence, we use, in Staffordshire, advisory 20 miles an hour speed limits outside schools located on main roads. 20 mile an hour zones usually require physical traffic calming measures or repeater speed limit signing and or round or road markings at regular intervals, as well as terminal signing at each entrance and exit to a zone, with the associated traffic orders being implemented. Therefore, the costs to implement these schemes are dependent on the measures necessary to make the speed limit self-enforcing and on the number of entry and exit points to the new restrictions where appropriate road signs and markings are required. A recent report from the Department of Transport concluded that 20 mile an hour zones have made no impact on road safety and that drivers have reduced their speed by just 0.7 miles per hour within those zones. The study has been carried out over 4 years in 12 different areas, including parts of Winchester, Liverpool, Brighton, Portsmouth and Middlesbrough, where data could be collected before and after implementation of the 20 mile an hour zone. The cost for each zone ranged from a minimum of £10,000 through to 1.7 million and focus solely on zones with no other traffic calming measures such as chicanes, speed humps or directional rights of way. It was found that typically drivers ignored the signage, believing that the risks of being caught speeding was minimal, which led to just, as I said, a 0.7 miles per hour reduction in speed throughout the zone, with an overall reduction of 0.9 miles per hour in the surrounding areas approaching the zone. Within the study, it also found that the biggest contributing factor to an accident was failure to observe either as a pedestrian or a motorist, but the lower speeds should mean that a road user has more time to react to an accident, which in theory means a lessened chance of injury. However, it is that very reason that could also cause the problem. In road users having more time to react, it seems complacency was increased. Further still, and perhaps the biggest takeaway from the study, is that there's a small amount of evidence that shows an increase in driver frustration and distraction. The frustration part is purely a learned behaviour, but the distraction part could be drawn down to the need for constant checking of the speedo, ensuring that you're driving below the 20 mile an hour limit, taking concentration and certain amount of skill, and with the influx of silent running electric vehicles, that could be made worse. There would be no engine notice guidance. The president of the AA has also said that we believe that targeted 20 mile an hour limits work best where they're needed, outside of schools or hospitals or places where other vulnerable road users may be encountered. Therefore, speed limits need to reflect the nature of the road.
Councillor Williams, can I ask you to wind up now, please?
There's only one more with the paragraph, but basically, Chairman, members, with no significant change in accident rates and no benefit to the environment, can local authorities, including parish councils, justifiably spend the amounts of money required to create these zones? For my own area of Penkridge, the minimum charge would be £32,000. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I now call on Councillor Charlotte Atkins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Warrilow and thank him for being out in all weathers, collecting signatures on his petition, which is a magnificent achievement. Now, 1 in 3 towns in the UK either have or are planning to implement a 20 mile an hour speed limit in areas with high pedestrian traffic. So Leek is very much in tune with other communities. Now, the Department of Transport Circular of 2013 stated that where there is expected to be a positive effect on road safety and a generally favourable reception from local residents, traffic authorities should consider implementing area-wide 20 mile an hour speed limits on major streets where there is a significant number of journeys on foot and where cycle movements are of important consideration, and also in residential streets where streets are used by people on foot and on bicycles, and where there is community support and the streets are suitable. Mr. Warrilow has demonstrated very clearly the community support with his petition. And the County Council wants to promote active travel by cycling or by on foot. It is clear that lower traffic speeds encourage walking and cycling. Leek is a lovely historic town, with much of it in a conservation area. Speeding traffic is not consistent with the quiet enjoyment of such areas. Income from visitors is a vital part of our local economy. We want to maximise that income by making the town more comfortable for pedestrians, both local and for tourists. Now, the County Council has already proposed detailed plans to place a 20 mile an hour speed limit on St Edward Street, which goes right through the centre of Leek. It's part of a major revamp of St Edward Street and the High Street and streets off St Edward Street. And it's proposing more pedestrian crossings, cycle lanes and new paving. Goodness knows when the funding will be found for this exciting new development. So in the meantime, why do we need to wait for the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, which the County Council has already recognised is desirable? And given that the County Council has these detailed plans for this new development, it accepts the principle that 20-mile-an-hour speed limit is good for Leek. The Department for Transport research study suggested that the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits are generally self-enforcing and that there is no expectation on the police to do anything more than their routine activity. So there's no additional police resources required. So with the community support evidenced by Mr. Warrilow's petition and County Council plans already in place for a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in Leek Town Centre, I hope that we are pushing at an open door with County Council highways. It is the only thing that will help in this situation in the town centre. Mr. Warrilow has very clearly stated some of the issues in the town centre, and I hope that the County Council Highways Department will listen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Northcote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations on your reappointment, and may I beg your indulgence to remain seated, please? Thank you.
You may.
Thank you, Mr. Warrior, for this petition. Unfortunately, I have to disagree with it. Having been a resident for some years in Leek, I lived on the outskirts in Staffordshire moorlands. I know Leek very, very well, extremely well, and I know where all the accidents have happened over the years. For example, Ladridge has been historically a dangerous road. And I won't go into the details that my colleague has already outlined in terms of the evidence of the costs. However, Staffordshire, it needs to be said that Staffordshire has one of the most best safe roads record in England. A blanket 20-mile-an-hour speed limit would do nothing for the flow of traffic through Leek. In fact, it would contribute to more exhaust emissions for those that haven't got stop-start technology. And based on this, it's not environmentally friendly. Targeted speed restrictions is far better. There's no evidence here of the actual need and where that needs to take place. Therefore, a blanket ban would not be appropriate. The evidence where needed needs to be everybody's responsibility, not to have just a speed limit, because it brings people into a full sense of security for 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Targeted things like speed reduction measures, the active groups that are existing for the speed watch groups are very effective in my area in loggerheads. In fact, it reduced the speed by 10 percentile in terms of speed, and it transpires that most speeding takes place with those that live locally to the area. A 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, blanket speed limit, is wholly not appropriate. So, Chairman, I would beg your indulgence to say there, where there is a problem, it needs to be based on evidence, and where needed, it needs to be targeted, and it's everybody's responsibility, not the county councils just to impose speed limits. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Parry, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations on your reappointment, and to Mike Bradbury's election success. May I also congratulate Mr. Warrilow on his speech this morning, and particularly may I congratulate him on the only feat I've seen in 25 years in this chamber where you finished your speech just as that red light came on. I have not seen that before, and that is impeccable, so congratulations on that count as well. That is, in my experience, quite unique. I'm also slightly disappointed, I have to say. I was half expecting the public gallery to be full of like-minded members of the League community would have wanted to come down and reinforce your point this morning. I was surprised to find that you're here alone, which there may well be reasons for that, but who knows. Normally when we have these town hall debates, there is a public gallery. There's sometimes people outside with an occasional banner or leaflet to hand out, and it feels a bit more of a campaign. Not suggesting it's not a campaign, by any means. I'm also slightly disappointed in that I didn't hear really enough about the message or the case for the 20 mile per hour. I heard a lot about the discontent of the highway improvements in Leek and the ongoing debate about the roundabout versus the traffic lights, etc. I must say, as a regular visitor to Leek, I find it quite a safe town to visit as a pedestrian. I enjoyed my visits to Leek for that reason, because I can wander around the various retail and tourist spots around Leek, which is a lovely town, and feel quite traffic-free, quite easy, and therefore I sense that there's, for me, it's never occurred to me that I'm being challenged, if you like, by the threat of cars around me. It feels quite different to that. And most of our towns in the county are similar to that, I guess. What I think we've heard, though, from my point of view, is the cost of this doesn't really justify it, because it's not just a question of whacking up a few 20 mile per hour signs. There is quite a significant cost in encapsulating the 20 mile per hour zone with all the regulations. Traffic regulation orders are a very expensive thing. And if we set a precedent here to say, well, actually, the justification isn't properly made, there is clearly an opportunity for every small town, village, etc., to want exactly the same. And what we've heard also this morning is that self-enforcing speed limits are best applied where there is a real obvious need. And that's why driver behaviour changes, because there's an obvious risk, as in, here's a school, there's a hospital, here's a bunch of people who regularly cross this road, there's an obvious risk here. And that's why behaviour changes, and the signage tends to reinforce rather than be the reason why people slow down. It's a reinforcement. There's a hospital, a school, or whatever, here's a sign that says 20 miles per hour, that all makes sense, slow down. If it's blanket, if it's all over the place, as we know, people will get used to it and will not amend their behaviours. So we'll end up paying an awful lot of money if you replicate it across the county, because obviously Leek is only one place with that sort of retail and tourist profile. Town close to my division of Stone has a similar profile. You'd expect the same thing to happen there. So I'm trying to emulate you, Mr. Warrilow, to get to that red. So I think the important thing here is that we recognise risks, that we apply traffic management and zoning and speed limits to enable us to ensure that there is self-regulation, good behaviour from drivers to achieve that. But I don't think the case is well made for the cost to justify this. I was hoping to have a lot more sympathy, hearing a lot more data and a lot more evidence that suggests that this is a special case, but I don't so far understand that this is a special case, Mr. Chairman. Damn it, didn't quite do it. Sorry, I haven't got the knack.
Thank you, Mr. Parry. Councillor Jill Heath, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations from me to you and Phil. As the Leek Rural Councillor, I live just outside Leek, within a mile of Leek. And I work in the division. I go to Leek or through Leek most days of the week. I can honestly say that no one has approached me to ask me about this. And I do note that it's taken, I understand, 3 petitions to get the significant figure of people saying they want it to bring it to this debate. As I say, I go through Leek quite a lot. I've not seen people speeding. I've not seen any problems. In fact, more often than not, the queue up Mill Street, it's impossible to do 20. It can take longer to go through Leek when I'm going to my parish council meetings to go the next 10 miles on to Flash and wherever I'm going. I don't see there is a big problem. Part of my division is Leek North, which has got quite a big percentage of Leek people. And no one has ever brought this problem up. We've got humps going into some of the roads in Leek. We've got loads of traffic lights. We've got loads of pedestrian crossings. I'm sorry, I can't support the motion. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor David Smith, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I find this resolution very difficult to come to terms with. My division is at the fountainhead of Staffordshire heading into both Birmingham, Walsall, the Black Country, or wherever you want to go, and vehicles trying every opportunity they can to do anything other than to get onto a main road and take the most obvious route into the places that they're going to. So that would, in some ways, make me very much in favour of this resolution. But on the other hand, I think that we have to look as a county. We can't just say, 20 plenty is not practical, or it's too expensive, or it's too this, or it's too that, it's too the other. I think that we have to look as a county at what's the solution. Why do we have this problem? And I don't think it's particularly local people who are breaching local speed limits. It's people who are shortcutting from A to B, and they find the fastest way to go from A to B is to shortcut through a village or through a lane which is unable to cope with that volume of traffic. So, Chairman, I would earnestly urge this council to take a serious look at traffic movements and how we can do something about directing traffic more effectively away from our villages so that the need for 20 is plenty isn't there. Outside my house, I have a 30-mile-an-hour limit. Anyone that's standing there will say they're all coming through at 70 miles an hour. Well, they're not. They're probably coming through at 40, maybe 50 miles an hour. And so enforcement becomes the major issue. And enforcement of 30 or 20 is not really very much different. I think that we need to talk to the police. We need to look at the overall strategy for the county of how can we more effectively move vehicles. So, Chairman, sadly, I'm not supporting the resolution, but I'm not supporting it because I don't agree with the principles of what we're looking at. I just believe that there is, from the county's point of view, a better way of dealing with it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. We have now reached the time allocated for debating a petition. I know there are 8 other speakers wishing to speak, but I'm not going to call them. I therefore invite Councillor David Williams to respond.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you everybody for your contributions today. I think I think it's been borne out in the fact that, unfortunately, cars these days are quicker, but people are still duty-bound themselves to follow the highway code. It is up to them. Enforcement is not us. We do not enforce speed. That is the police. And just to put blankets 20 miles an hour speed limits in will mean absolutely nothing, in my view, because if they're not following a 30 miles an hour, why would they then start following the 20 miles an hour with no way of it being enforced and no way of it being properly monitored? In fact, I know that Community Speedwatch cannot have their guns redeveloped to enable them to look at 20 miles an hour. Some of the things that local members have said, actually they need to be working with their community highways teams to look at what physical barriers need to be put in place to ensure that people are safe if they feel it is unsafe. Part of that is to ask, when it comes to members, have they put in their traffic counts? They can pay for that, they can see what the actual speeds are. And in my case, when I've been doing a lot of this and looking at the results that have come out of these traffic counts, actually the speeding isn't there. It is more of a perception issue. I think realistically, what Staffordshire County Council does, and the fact that we are concerned about the state of our roads, that we are investing in it, that we are concerned about the safety of our people, and that we are one of the safest councils within the country. I think we're doing what we can, and unfortunately, I can't agree with Mr Warrell's proposition to put a 20-mile-an-hour zone over Leek. I don't think it's right because it will lead to a blasé attitude of people. They won't look at it as what it is. We in Staffordshire use it to highlight issues such as schools, which is backed up by evidence, and that is why we do it. We want to make sure that our children and the people where we have it is safe, and to put in blanket 20 miles doesn't work. It's been proven it doesn't work. In fact, more people are having, according to the DFT, more people have accidents trying to watch the speedo and keep knocking things rather than actually driving properly. So, Mr Chairman, unfortunately I can't support Mr Warrell's petition on this one, but I can ensure that if the local member wants to work with the Community Highways team and utilise their DHP monies for safety issues, that their Community Highways team will work with them to do that. But that is up to the local members to do such that. Same as the traffic counts, and the same as the fact that if members have issues where we're looking at traffic movements, as in Mr Smith's division, we've just put in a Lichfield Southern bypass to help with that, to keep vehicles out of the actual city itself. We are doing it. This Conservative-led cabinet is doing it at all times, and I have to say we are continuing to be one of the safest councils in the country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Statements of the lead for Council. Councillor Alan White, will you move consideration of a statement, please?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Can I just respectfully say thank you to Mr Warrell for your contribution to the debate before I move my statement. I think that's the debate concluded, Mr Chairman. But congratulations for you to your elevation or reinstatement as Chairman. I move the statement of the leader, Mr Chairman, but I would like to propose that we consider the paragraph 1 and 9 together, and also paragraphs 2 and 8 together, if you would be so minded to do.
Thank you, Leader. Okay, statement for lead of the Council. Item 1, Highways and Transport Capital Programme 2022-23, and also be taken with it Staffordshire Highways Infrastructure Asset Management Plan. Councillor Gillian Pardesi, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we're told that the capital programme has reduced funding now for the second year, and that we have been using or have used our reserves. Are our reserves meant to be used to support highway maintenance activities? Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Chair, can I just
my apologies to continue.
Yes, my question was, is that the most effective way of using our reserves to top up the reduced funding for highways maintenance activities? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Daisy. Councillor Saeed Hussain, please.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I would like to echo what has been said about your elections as well. Can I extend my many congratulations to you and the Vice Chairman as well. Mr. Chairman, I found your door was always open for us in a very difficult time. Not only you look after your own constituents, and whenever I wanted a constituent's father's dying wish, and you sorted this one out within hours. And I would like to thank this on the record as well. Mr. Chairman, I am very fortunate to have a very good and excellent highways team. And there is no doubt we have in this county, we have the third safest street in the whole country. And the reason I'm standing here, we are striving to make our best better, to make things work. Mr. Chairman, I am a bit concerned to see that our reserves of £929,000 has been using to for the additional funding for the regular works, I believe, Mr. Chairman, reserves is for rainy day. And this is why I'm a bit concerned that is there any way we can ask our local MPs and to have a bit more, a better bargain in the House of Commons and to get our fair share for our highways as well. Mr. Chairman, otherwise, another issue that I would like to also highlight in this chamber as well and for your indulgence as well. Mr. Chairman, our team, individual councillors, and with due respect to our cabinet members as well, we are trying our very best to give the better service for our residents. But unfortunately, some of the residents goes extra miles and they use this one, an opportunity to abuse verbally or in social media, not only to the elected officials, to our excellent officers as well. And I abhor this practice as well. Sometimes this is quite personal. I know, Mr. Chairman, as a politicians, we need to learn how to grow thick skin. But at the end of the day, we are also human beings. And we got families as well. We don't deserve that. I hope people will reconsider their things. And these are very small, tiny minority. I'm very privileged to represent a vast majority of our people do appreciate this one. And in fact, Mr. Chairman, after doing this, getting this highways job works, and on the telephone, one of the constituents asking me to join the tea with her as well. So these are the positive feedbacks we are getting as well. So Mr. Chairman, thank you once again for your indulgence, and I'm looking forward to work with you many more months to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Councillor Ian Parry, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to come back to Councillor Pardesi and Councillor Hussain for your comments about the use of reserves. Foxed us a little bit, because I don't think that minute is terribly clear. It refers to carry forward in this sense rather than use of general reserve. So it is earmarked for highways. So we're not just drawing on rainy day money, as you describe it quite rightly, to fund the highway programme. We have a commitment, though, that we want to invest in highways in Staffordshire in a very targeted and performance-managed way. So it's really important to us that we actually get this right, that we appropriately fund the highways programme and the capital programme to ensure that we do get on top of some of the deterioration in our infrastructure.
Thank you. Councillor David Smith, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, could I just, in looking at the fact that we're now considering highways expenditure, I'm appalled at the cost of some of the things that we do. And I would like to feel that within the overall expenditure, we were trying to find ways where we could do things more economically. I look at a particular example of something which came onto my desk yesterday, where we need to move a bus stop from a dangerous position to a safer place to get people across an A road. At the moment, the bus disgorges its passengers onto an A road with no safe place to go to. The cost of moving that 50 yards up the road is £5,250. There is no provision within the council's budget on the grounds of health and safety to fund that. So unless I can find the funding from elsewhere, people will still get off a bus into a dangerous location. I also feel that there are ways in which we could work together where we're looking at traffic regulation orders. I probably bore this council by saying that I look at regional TROs rather than single TROs, but there are ways in which we can more effectively use our resources, and I think that we need to take a hard look at that. I do find it very, very difficult to understand how some quite simple things that a man with a shovel would deal with in an hour costs £5,250. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor David Williams, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the comments. I think when it comes to the fact about highways, let's actually look at what this cabinet is doing. Yes, unfortunately, we have had a reduction from DFT, and we've got that reduction for the next 3 years as well. But this Cabinet is investing £15.5 million into our highways. We're borrowing it, and we're going forward with transforming the way highways is being brought both to yourselves, but also to our communities. So, when we're asking the questions about it, we are lobbying our MPs. We speak to them on a regular basis about asking for more money for highways. When Councillor Smith talks about the cost of things, unfortunately, things do cost a lot of money. We are in a time of inflation. Our bitumen's gone up nearly 35% at the moment. It's a huge amount of money, which is what we're not going to be able to put down on the ground. But what we are going to do is reusing it more effectively. And those councillors who actually signed up to the PTGRO notifications about road closures will see that we've started to do the blanket style of traffic orders. So I had one yesterday for roads within Staffordshire. We've already started to do that. But some do need specific information, and some need specific times to carry out extensive works to ensure that the work is completed correctly. In this council, we've always complained, and we've had complaints, and you can imagine I get quite a lot about potholes. We're trying to transform the way we do that, and we're trialling the right first time. So when we go out there and complete a pothole, as from July, we will also be looking at completing the area, the small area around it, so the other Cat 2s and Cat 3s are addressed at the same time. This costs money, but we are going to trial it with this extra investment that this Cabinet is putting forward. I understand Councillor Smith's reservations about the cost of things about moving a bus stop. One of the things is it our bus stop? We don't own all the bus stops. Some are owned by the bus companies themselves, some are owned by parishes, some are owned by districts and boroughs. We don't own them all. So those costs, as he says, are not actually part of the County Council's budgetary plans at the moment. And if we need to do that, if those things need to be done, that's where working with local councils, local parishes, that's where, and districts and boroughs, that's where they can actually fund those movements and changes. We can help them with that, with our Infrastructure Plus contract. I have to say I'm really excited about what's going on with highways at the moment. We are trying to do the best for our customers. We are trying to do the best for our residents as we can with the money that we've got. And I actually think that the new Infrastructure Plus way that we are working, you will see the differences already with your community highways teams. You should have seen that already when you've been for your DHP meetings. Is starting to address the issues, and we are moving forward to ensure that, one, your DHP projects are carried out efficiently and looked after, and two, that when we're doing the work that we are doing out in our communities, they are informed about it, and they are shown the before and after pictures, which is now all in. That on my staff's app has completely changed, and we have made sure that that is actually being rolled out right the way across the county, so that when people report a defect, they get a picture before and after, and are updated as to when these things will happen. Mr. Chairman, I think when it comes to it, unfortunately, I've always been one who said about traffic orders that I really find it upsetting that we have to pay to shut a road that I'm duty bound to maintain. That is the way of the world, unfortunately, and that's what we have to do. What I didn't do was congratulate you on your reinvestiture. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Council Leader, please.
Mr. Chairman, and highways always elicits quite an interesting debate, doesn't it? It's the one thing all of us consistently gets in our postbag. Councillor Hussain, you have a constituent in your division who writes to me personally probably 3 times a day, and I'm always very grateful to hear from her. So I know that, and other members of council are in receipt of those pieces of correspondence as well. It is very simple to say that the solution to highways is just to chuck more money into highways, and that the getting of the money is somebody else's problem. Let's just get in touch with our MPs, let's just get more money. It doesn't work like that, never has done. In 1997, when the Labour government came in, the Labour group who were in control here thought that freight trains loads of cash would start coming up the West Coast main line to Staffordshire, be dumped at Stafford railway station for the council to use as it saw fit. Turned out that wasn't the case. In 2004, we'll all remember, those of us who were here at the time or in other councils, the Gershon savings. All of a sudden, government imposes upon local authorities 3% year-on-year savings from there forwards. We haven't done anything but do more savings since. But savings leads to transformation. Simply tipping more money into a problem doesn't always solve the problem. When we're talking about materials, of course, that can be the case, because Councillor Williams has talked about the price of bitumen and the price of tarmac and the other things that clearly excite him now he's the highways portfolio holder. The transformation programme we have for highways is a good programme. Councillor Williams is leading that. You will see an improvement. It will take time. We can't solve everybody's problems, but we're going to do our best and go some considerable way forward as a consequence of this transformation programme and the additional investment that this Conservative administration has approved in highways. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Economic strategy and rural economic strategy, items 2 and item 8. Councillor Charlotte Atkins, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and let me belatedly congratulate you on your re-election. Thank you very much. The focus of the economic strategy is understandably long-term and broad brush, but increasing skill levels is obviously a vital part of that. But my concern is for the youngsters in schools, colleges and universities whose education has been adversely impacted by COVID-19. And how is the County Council ensuring in the short term that the COVID impact does not have an adverse impact on them lifelong? Because my concern is, particularly for deprived communities, where perhaps they haven't been benefiting from online learning quite as much as other communities, that there will be a lifelong legacy, adverse lifelong legacy on them, unless we do something pretty dramatic now. What I don't want to see is for those youngsters in years to come that they will be subject to unemployment or indeed going into jobs where their clear talents are not fully employed. So my concern is that we shouldn't forget them now that we're coming out of the COVID pandemic, and that we should recognise that they really are in need of help if they're not going to have an economic impact on them for the rest of their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gillian Pardesi, please.
Chair, my light was on for the previous section. Thank you.
No problems, thank you. Councillor Mark Willington, please.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I agree we've got to make sure that skills are right for the whole economy. But I'd like to say a few words about the rural strategy. It's an extensive document. It's a very good document. It's also slightly out of date before it's even been published. The reason being that as we all know, the world's in a slightly strange place at the moment. In terms of just the pandemic, the rural areas now want a different offer. People want to live in the country. They want to be able to walk the dogs. They've got used to having the freedom. They want to go out with the family. They want to see the great countryside that we've got, particularly in Staffordshire. And they want to live in the country and work in the country. So I think this economic strategy, some of the things that are common, whether it's rural, and we are 65% rural, or whether it's industrial, we need gigabit. And I think there's a commitment that we do get gigabit for the whole of the county, not just for people to do emails and social media, but for people like myself who are working in the country to be able to run GPS technology, autonomous vehicles, and the likes of that, to make sure that we start to produce more food, because that's the next part of the agenda. Do we look at food, fuel or leisure? And people are suddenly realising, not just in the UK but around the world, if we don't do something about it, people will starve. and particularly in the third world countries, and I think that's something we've all got a responsibility for. But we also need rural housing, and I think this sort of transcends not just the county, but also the districts as well. In their local plans, there's always been a protection of the rural areas, which is great. We all love to see our green areas, but if they're going to be working areas as well, we need to be able to find houses for people to live in, and affordable houses. In my area, there's some beautiful little cottages, or were little cottages, they're now 5-bedroom properties, and of course local people can't afford to live in the country. And the adage that they can travel was great when petrol was a sensible figure. Now we're into sort of people thinking about every mile, and I worked out, I think it's 41 pence a mile to actually go from A to B. That's important to people. So when we put the strategy together, please make sure that you talk to everybody. I know Philip's mentioned the CLA and the NFU and those bodies, but talk to the local people, find out what they want, and also make it a living document, because I can guarantee the way prices are going and fertilisers in short supply, anyone with livestock's got to pay an exorbitant amount for food. We've got to make sure that the rural environment, not just farming, but the whole environment works. We've got rural enterprise, and we've got villages that come to life again, because a lot of my villages are dormitory towns, or dormitory villages. So please take that on board, that we do need the whole of that 65% of Staffordshire supporting as much as the other businesses within Staffordshire. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philip Atkins, please.
Thank you, Chairman. These two strategies are really important, because they're going to set the ground for the next 5 or 6 years, and none of us know what's going to happen over the next 5 or 6 years. Obviously, there are things in the news today that I've been telling you about for years. Mark Winnington's just mentioned food, fuel or leisure. We've done some great work in the past, as it says in the paragraph, about I-54 and the Stafford Western Access Road. And there's still a lot more to do, like the North Midlands Manufacturing Corridor or the A5. And we've got a lot of sites that are providing employment. There's probably more jobs than unemployed at the moment. But I have to tell you, Chairman, and congratulations on your reappointment, that you haven't seen the end of this. This is only the beginning, as Winston Churchill would say. Last Friday, I was offered a load of fertiliser at £630 a tonne, and I tried to buy it with 2 loads of winter barley, but I was too late. On Tuesday, I was offered a load of fertiliser at £710 a tonne, and I bought it with a load of oilseed rape at £716 a tonne. That price for 716 is more than double what oilseed rape was last year. The fertiliser is 2.5 times what it was last year. And before any of my colleagues start saying, well, we can always import food, well, where from? Because the Russians have wrecked the infrastructure in the Ukraine. It will take years to rebuild. They feed the people in the Middle East. Because the Middle East are looking for other supplies, India has stopped all exports of grain. That is the second biggest exporter in that area. So there's probably going to be about 5 years of very difficult circumstances in the global food market, which will impact here, because with increased wheat prices, you'll find that eggs and chickens and things like that will go up in price. There are farmers making decisions today whether they keep cows or not to milk, whether the price is the right. So whatever you've seen in the shops to date is nothing to what is going to come. And these prices, I think I can get £350 a tonne for wheat in December at the moment. Last year, this time last year, I'd have been lucky if I'd have got 150, 160. Wheat goes into so many products that you wouldn't even believe. It even goes into your petrol. Where do you think the E10 comes from? It's ethanol. from fermenting wheat. So all these things are coming into it. So if you need higher skilled jobs and more, greater productivity, skills are important, college is important, but also the way of life in this country will change. People will have to start shopping in a different way. The pandemic has meant that people went out and did a big shop rather than do little shops. How's that going to affect? You see some of the supermarkets are going bust. Where are their margins? They've squeezed the producers down to nothing, and now the producers have gone. So how do they pass those higher prices on? Where do we get the chips from? The Chinese harbour at Shanghai is full of ships because of their COVID lockdown. So this economic strategy and rural strategy are really important because, as I said, stood up and probably said about 15 years ago in this council chamber when we did the first economic strategy, it's a bit like boarding a ship down at Southampton. We know we're going to go to America, but we don't know exactly where in America we're going to go, and we don't know whether we're going to call at Cherbourg or Cork or Dublin on the way. We may even end up at Liverpool before we get to go out across the Atlantic and steam away towards America and find out whether it's New York, Boston or Florida. We don't really know where we're going, but we have to have a strategy, and this is a good piece of paper to start us on it. It's good underpinning, but when you've got a strategy, what you must do is never go on a short-term blip in another direction, which is what, it's a bit like the debate. You know, you could have 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. You've got to stick to what you are about, your main business dream. And the reason we do this is because people of Staffordshire who've got jobs that put money in their pocket will be safer, healthier, and happier. They'll commit less crime. They'll look after each other. But if they haven't got these things and they worry about it, then everything goes to pieces. That's why this is an important document. But don't waver from it, the strategies. There will be people that you've missed, like the Country Landowner Business Association in the consultation, because they'll know all about the tax implications. We'll have to lobby government on taxes that are levied, corporation taxes, development taxes, a whole host of things. You may want to get the tax so that you can spend the money on your pet project, but always remember that you've got to have a successful economy in Staffordshire to pay for all the nice things that we want. It's not the public sector that creates profit. It's not the public sector that creates income. It's the private sector and business that pays the taxes that gives us the things that we deliver to the people of Staffordshire. And never, ever forget that.
Thank you. Councillor Jonathan Price, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and may I first congratulate you on your role this year. Congratulations. Councillor Atkins raised some concerns around catch-up and lost education for our pupils within the county, and that is a concern that I share too. I've had the pleasure recently of visiting several schools along with Councillor McMahon, Hewitt, and Councillor Flunders as well. The first thing we do when we go into the school is always meet with those pupils, and we have discussions with those pupils to hear about what their concerns and issues are that they've experienced over the past couple of years. We found that really useful and really insightful. Very humbled as well by the schools to see that the things that they are putting in place to support those children and young adults with the education that they have missed. Now, importantly, it is something we need to recognise that catching up education is something that would be very difficult to do. So if you were to catch up 2 years plus the year that you're trying to learn as well, that is a physical impossibility. What schools are doing is making sure that those pupils have all the right skills and those aspects of education they feel they'll need to go forward. And I've seen evidence of that within all of our schools, including some of the programs where they put on weekend classes, support in the evenings, and focus classes as well for those particular subjects, maths, English, for example, where there are gaps. The government have given schools catch-up funding as well, and I've seen how that money is being spent to support pupils. There is also an odd case as well where some of our most vulnerable pupils continued to go into school while there was a lockdown, and actually they've started to thrive because there's been very few pupils within the classroom. So that's something as well that's being explored to see how they continue with some of that good work. But ultimately it is our schools that are making sure that that lost education is supported, and I have to say from the evidence that I've seen and for the numerous schools that I visited that that will be the case. I recognise that you will not catch up with that all of that lost education, and unfortunately the pandemic has come along, and that's the situation that some of our pupils have found themselves in. But we as an authority and our schools will continue to do everything we can to make sure that all of those pupils are fully supported and get the best education that Staffordshire can offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McMahon, I'll take your seat, and Councillor Wilson. Thank you. Councillor Philip White, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and congratulations to you on your reappointment, and congratulations to Councillor Hewitt as well, who I think was reappointed as Vice Chair, rather than Mr Bradbury. So we've had a short but good debate, I think, and it's good to hear the broad support for the two strategies within the Chamber. We are a strategic authority, and if we fail to plan, then we plan to fail. So it is essential that we have strategies that speak to the key challenges that this authority is here to play a part in addressing. Within the economy, our part is to support business and to support individuals in doing the things that they do. And there are certain key activities that we can undertake to do that. Our focus is on those things that we can do here rather than the things that are for national government to do, or indeed for businesses to do themselves. And the two strategies that you see before you speak to those things that we can do ourselves and with partners to make a difference here in Staffordshire. So within the economic strategy for the whole of the county, the focus overall is on those better paid and higher skilled jobs. Everything that we do ultimately is about putting money in people's pockets so that they can live their lives and support their families. That is the key. The other activities that are highlighted in there as key priorities are regenerating our town centres, encouraging more business startups and for more businesses to grow to that next stage in their lifespans, to develop those strategic corridors where we see major economic growth as being possible, as well as major improvements to our infrastructure, and being in a position to bid successfully for funding, whether that's from the public sector or from the private sector, to bring money home to Staffordshire. And those are challenges that I think that there are areas where we can make a difference. The other thing that's really important is that we recognise that we are predominantly a rural county. It's about 80% of our county that is classed as rural, and a little over half of our economic activity actually takes part in those areas. And historically, we've not had a strategy that speaks specifically to the needs of those areas. Many of those needs are the same as in our urban areas, but some of them are different. So you'll see in the economic strategy a focus on land-based industries, particularly farming. And it is important that we support those industries for the reasons that colleagues have mentioned and others, in the ways that we can locally. We also need to support other businesses and particularly support innovation in our rural areas, because there are many other business types as well. We need that broad economy. Tourism is key in our rural areas. We are the heart of the country, we're the country's playground, and a huge amount of our tourism industry is in those rural areas. We need to support our rural hub towns, so Leek, whatever the speed limits, Cheadle, Uttoxeter, Stone and Rugeley are key service hubs in the county for the rural areas. And we need better connectivity as well, both better roads connectivity, but also the broadband that Councillor Whittington mentioned. So that, in a nutshell, is the two strategies. The key for today, for me, though, is that we want to hear from as many people as possible about their views on these strategies. They are living documents. At the moment, they're out to consultation, which is an early part of their lives, before they're formally made as our strategy. We want to hear from businesses. We want to hear from organisations. We want to hear from individuals, whether they run a business or whether they work in a business, whatever their situation. We want to hear from as many people as possible. So please, through all of your networks, communicate these consultations to as many people as possible so that we can get their views on whether we have the right thing or not. And that lifespan will continue. So one of the other agenda items we have today is a report back on our current economic strategy. Staffordshire means back to business. We will keep on refreshing, renewing, monitoring and developing all of the work that stems from these strategies. And we will bring them back to this chamber regularly for you to look at. But for today, please just encourage as many people as possible to take part in those consultations. Thank you, Chair.
Leader of Council, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to flag up the work we're currently doing to support not only our existing strategy, but our future strategies. Myself and the Chief Executive, with others, were in Leeds yesterday. I was in Leeds yesterday and the Chief Executive the day before, at the UK Real Estate Investment and Infrastructure Forum. This is the successor, effectively, to MIPIM in the south of France. So I get to go to Leeds, and others got to go to Cannes, Nice, somewhere nice, sunny. Leeds is lovely, by the way, absolutely wonderful city. But the point of that is that it has often been put to us that we haven't reported back on the contacts that we've made during the course of those events because taxpayers' money has been spent covering my costs to get up there and the day that I spent there. But I was able to make and establish contacts with an organisation that funds district heating grids, which plays to the green agenda. This is how we might think about heating homes for the future, 2,500 homes heated from a single source using district heating grids. We have the sites across Staffordshire where we might be able to do that in partnership with our district and borough colleagues. Why don't we examine that further? I met with the chair of M6 Toll, who wants to know what we can do in the south of the county to make life better for people who live in the south of the county, who are perhaps blighted by the M6 Toll when it came in, but haven't necessarily benefited from it since it's existing. Talking about variable pricing for local people, smart pricing, so that if you're popping on and off if you live locally, then you can use it more effectively. I had a very good conversation with the Strategic Director from National Highways about what we can do for, in Councillor Atkins, he's not here at the moment, in his division, about making better access to JCB. And I was accompanied by a director from JCB. We were having those conversations, and National Highways, which is the successor to Highways England, seemed very amenable to that. And then we also had a forum about the A50, A500 corridor project, which will see the north of the county, the east-west component of the north of the county enhanced, and jobs and growth being brought to that part of the county. So we are working hard, and we're getting ourselves known in the fora that we need to be to promote Staffordshire to the wider part of the United Kingdom and get business and jobs and growth back to this county, Mr. Chairman.
Agreement for Mental Health Act, Section 117, aftercare needs. Councillor Anne Edger, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome this agreement between the County Council and the CCG. Any help that we as the County Council can provide to help with people suffering from mental health as they're discharged from hospital has got to be a plus. Mental health is a growing problem, and we as a council have got to recognise that we can do all we can long term to alleviate this growing problem. We have to recognise that this is only a probation period for 2 years. I just hope long term it will continue and be sustainable and progress further. Thank you, Chairman. Could I just also mention something that I picked up at corporate parenting panel to do with mental health? And I don't know whether everybody's aware, but when a baby is in the womb, that's when it can affect its mental health. So if the baby's in the womb and it is actually hearing banging and clattering and shouting and that, while it's growing in the womb physically, also mentally it's affecting it as well. You know, so if you know anybody that's pregnant anywhere, a lady that's pregnant, then please give them the message that they talk to the baby, that they sing to the baby, that they play music to the baby, so it grows, and when it is born, it's in a really nice environment. So that's one thing that I picked up, and I thought I'd like to share it with you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Tom Loughborough, please.
First of all, I also welcome the agreement on mental health. I think that mental health is something that we all deal with, and it doesn't matter which division or constituency we represent. I do have some concerns when it comes to transitional arrangements, just because I know personally, from my personal work and my personal life, how much it affects people. One of my very good friends, who I will not name, I'll just call him Constituent A, suffers from mental health and is my constituent, and numerous times I am concerned about the aftercare needs, and I'd like to know how we as a council review them, and the things like addiction and alcohol, because I think that we need to review that. But I do welcome the fact that we are welcoming and funding and working together with the clinical care groups overall. I think overall, mental health in Staffordshire have done really well, because it's been an impeccable time, an impossible time, and I welcome the council's actions. I just hope that we can find something permanent and a solution to an issue that I think will continue to be relevant as we emerge in the years to come from the pandemic and all the impacts of working from home. And I support fully the agreement that's in place, but I think we do need to review. I hope we can, in some way, review the aftercare needs that we give to constituents, especially in my local area where I have quite a few local concerns. Thank you.
Councillor Shalt-Atkins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wondered why, up until now, the County Council has paid the lion's share of aftercare services under Section 117 of the Mental Health Act. And, you know, why was that the case? I know often we have a bit of a debate with the NHS about who should pay for what. But also, how will this agreement be affected by the abolition of CCGs in the future? Presumably it will be with the successor organisation. But is there also potential for similar cost-shifting agreements with the NHS? We are moving towards integrated care, but I also know how difficult it is sometimes to get the CCGs to pay their debts. So I really wondered, you know, is this the forerunner of agreements in the future, or is this just a one-off? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Northcote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I welcome this completely. On the patient's journey, one of the most stressful things is waiting for your aftercare services to be put in place. I welcome this because it will reduce that bureaucracy and hope to free up that time between the transitional period of leaving an establishment, moving on to aftercare. So I'm delighted that this has come through. Thank you.
Councillor Mark DeVille, please.
Chairman, many thanks. And I also warmly welcome this item in the Leader's Statement, Chairman. May I, very briefly, Chairman, just thank Mrs. Edgeler for the work that she does in this area. Crucial area of work for us all, Chairman. May I thank her for her determination, her tenacity, and her sheer hard work in this area, an area that's really more important now than it's ever been, Chairman. And Anne is a real ambassador, and she's a real champion. And whenever Anne Edgeler says something in this chamber around this subject, it's certainly worth listening to, Chairman.
Councillor Johnny McMahon, please.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations to you and the Vice Chair. I think it's worth remembering that when we think about delayed discharges of care and those medically fit for discharge, we think of physical health. We think of big, acute physical hospitals. But it also applies to the mental health arena, where beds can be particularly scarce. and it's difficult to locate people. So this addresses that. So it not only helps those who are coming out of the system, but also facilitates those who are entering the system who are acutely ill. It cuts both ways, and I think that's worth remembering. And I wholeheartedly endorse it. Thank you.
Councillor Julia Jessel.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This, to me, is an excellent example of the local NHS and Staffordshire County Council working closer together. And to pick up on Councillor Atkins' comment, I hope this is the first of a number of agreements that we have with the NHS, because we now locally have developed that confidence with each other, those relationships, where we can apply what I call common sense for the benefit of the people that we're here to serve. This approach is pragmatic and is common sense, but it does involve a difference in the funding streams. It now is 50-50, and to correct just a misconception that Councillor Edgeler may have had, it's not just a 2-year pilot. There is a transition period, because at the end of 2024, it will result in a saving to this authority of about £4 million a year. Subsequently, that means a loss to the CCG, and this period from now to 2024 allows them to manage that financial transition. But it will mean that the historic haggling as to who pays for what will finish. That has to be good for that transition that Councillor McMahon has referred to, for people being discharged from hospital under a Section 117 agreement. It will make it far smoother, far more efficient. That's better for the patient. And actually, it's better for the two organisations, because less time is spent in those negotiations with those bureaucracy. And as my cabinet colleagues know, I keep banging on about the fact that we need to reduce bureaucracy, because that's a waste of money. And I'm always very conscious that whether it's the NHS or it's this county council, we are spending taxpayers' money. And my underlying principle is that we get best value for that. So this is a very good, sound agreement, and I hope it is the first of many, because I think it's the way to go. Can I also thank Councillor Edgeler for her enthusiasm and commitment to mental health and improving mental health, and for that very sound advice that she's given us. I'm not likely to be pregnant, but I do know a lot of young people who are, and as I say, very sound advice, and actually illustrates that mental health and people's good mental health is always at the forefront of our mind. Chairman, I forgot to congratulate you on your appointment for another year in harness, but you always look as though you thoroughly enjoy it, and I know you're highly respected throughout the county, so thank you very much. I think I've covered all the areas, apart from there were concerns expressed generally about mental health and mental health services. And together again with our NHS colleagues, we are in the process of developing a mental health strategy, which will go through the normal processes of coming to scrutiny, so everybody will have the opportunity to be involved in that process. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. Leader of the Council, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to pay tribute to Councillor Anne Edgeler as well, whilst we're on this agenda item. Anne very kindly stepped up to be the mental health champion for Staffordshire County Council, and she doesn't just stand in the chamber and ask the odd question and say, that's what I'm doing as a councillor. What she does is go around and persistently make sure that the mental health services available for the county, in some areas not as good as they could be, but you're constantly lobbying for improved services across the county, and for that, I think this chamber and Staffordshire County Council and the residents of Staffordshire should be very grateful for the very hard work you do on that, Anne. The haggling that Councillor Atkins referred to, if we can solve it for mental health, we also need to solve it for other areas. You're quite right to identify the haggling that goes on between social services and the NHS. Certainly, Councillor Jessel is picked on an inopportune moment there as she's taking a sip of water. with continuing healthcare costs, you'll know that there's constantly a bit of a tussle going on. We hope that the bringing together of the integrated health and care system will put an end to that. Not holding my breath, if I'm honest, but actually it would be better if we could come to resolution far more quickly. Just touching briefly on drug and alcohol services, as we all know in the Chamber, when public health transferred across to upper tier local authorities, we got responsibility not just for recovery but also for treatment. There has been a challenge around the funding of treatment services, and we do look to communities to take and individuals to take responsibility for themselves in circumstances like that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Capital Programme for Schools 22-23. Councillor David Smith, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just ask, perhaps, we have a tremendous opportunity looking at the capital programme for schools to address the fact that we have acres and acres of school roofs that would be wonderful to have solar panels on, and also playing fields that could provide ground source heat pumps. To become energy efficient is very, very much more economically viable now than it perhaps was even 6 months ago. And so I hope that we take this opportunity to bring our schools up to, who knows, being energy neutral. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Gillian Pardesi, please.
Thank you, Chair. 35.5 million may sound like a lot of money, Chair, but spread over 400 plus schools really doesn't amount to very much. And this amount of money needs to be judged against what has been cut in the past. This money doesn't make up for the reductions in funding that we've had over the previous years, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Jonathan Price, please.
Thank you, Chairman. There is a slight mistake actually in this. It talks about 35.5 million for the county's 400 schools. It's for 127 schools, so the money does actually go much, much further. I would like to say a few words just to put a bit of meat on the bones around the Capital Schools programme, because I think it's really important on the work that we do around this. So the Capital Programme for Schools 22-23 is made up of two aspects, which is basic needs, pupil place provision projects, and maintenance, which is the improvement projects. The Department for Education basic needs funding in 22-23 is just over 2 million to support the creation of additional school places due to the growth of the school population and to support those house building projects where we have more houses and therefore more pupils. In 22-23, Staffordshire had been allocated nearly 8.5 million to support the improvement in the condition of schools, and we have a schools asset management plan, which is the AMP, and that contains details of the condition of school buildings so local decisions on capital projects can be made based on the priority of need. The plan's maintenance approach enables coordinated programme of repairs and allows resources to be targeted where they are most needed. The latest AMP condition survey information identifies works totaling £26.5 million in the three highest priority categories. And as I mentioned earlier, that does exclude academies and voluntary aided schools and is for our own schools only. With the work to the value of 2.7 million identified under the highest priority, we will continue to prioritise work for capital investment in schools based on improving education standards by addressing highest priority condition issues, ensuring schools are safe, warm and dry, delivering projects to provide more suitable facilities in the school environment that are not condition driven but will enhance the education provision. Refurbishment of toilet facilities that are designed, fitted out to a standard that discourages antisocial behaviour and vandalism, and ensuring that Staffordshire pathway schools are fit for purpose to allow children with mobility problems access to our mainstream education, and of course meeting climate change and sustainability targets, including some of that work that Councillor Smith raised earlier. There is an additional capital fund for SEND, and Staffordshire County Council will use the high needs provision capital allocation to deliver projects which involve the development of resource bases at mainstream schools for children with education and healthcare plans or require SEND support, and autistic spectrum condition. And partnership working and co-location of specialist provision on mainstream sites, increasing capacity in specialist provision to reduce the need to access placements at independent schools, and of course that out-of-county provision, therefore shortening journeys for our pupils. And just to add, I took a paper to Cabinet yesterday which talked about the high needs capital allocation funding. I'm pleased to say that we have detailed 5 projects which have now gone through the Cabinet, and that will help to expand some of our specialist school provision where those pupils are unable to access mainstream provision. And I'd just like to thank as well the officers and all the hard work that's gone on behind the scenes to make sure that we've delivered this. And I think that most members here, if they actually go through the AMP, will see that within that document they will have at least 1 or 2 schools in their area that have benefited from this recently. Thank you.
Thank you. Children's Home Block Contract. Councillor Bob Spencer, please.
Chair, thank you. And again, congratulations and to Councillor Hewitt as well. I just wanted to say a few words about this contract as the Chair of Overview and Safeguarding Overview and Scrutiny, sorry. I think it's encouraging to see that Staffordshire has responded to some art in NARA's review. I believe we're probably in the minority in doing that. And it's important to recognise that when young people look to us for help, they are very often and they've often faced some unimaginable trauma and crisis. And critical to a successful intervention that we provide is that immediate availability of good quality accommodation, because it's vital to stabilise that particular situation and then give that time, effort and room for us to provide the necessary support. I think having this additional capacity here in Staffordshire is a huge advantage and will support or help us support young people in crisis. And for that reason, I warmly welcome this provision. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Sutton, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Can I start by congratulating you on your position today, and out of everybody in this chamber, I've certainly known you longer than anyone else from that time in the early 80s when we were young PCs together. Can I also welcome the appointment of your Vice Chairman as well, and also welcome his return to the corporate parenting panel in the as we move forward. If we turn now to the actual item here, the block contract, it's our ambition and it's our aims, as I've explained many times in this chamber, to work with families, to try our hardest, and our social workers do this and the other partners we work with families to try and keep children out of care, to support those families so that those children, where it is safe to do so, can stay with those families. But of course there are occasions where we do have to, for the very right reasons, take children into our care. And our first aim with that would be to try and find a foster care family that child can be placed with. And then can I take that opportunity, as we are in foster care fortnight, just to ask members around the chamber that when they have the opportunity to take that opportunity to talk to people about the opportunities of being a foster carer and the value that brings not only to the children in our care, but also those people involved, the great satisfaction and reward they get out of this. But of course there are occasions where we do have to place children in residential care, and this block contract will help us to have that flexibility to be able to find appropriate places at the appropriate time and not have to just make spot purchases. I would like to be able to be in a position where we could work more closely with more local authorities around the region in being able to do this. But this is a start, and I think it sets us in the right direction. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you. Local bus concessionary payment, final COVID-19 support package. Councillor Colin Greatrix.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I be within the first 25 to congratulate you on your appointment?
Can I also congratulate you on being the chair of Lichfield?
I'll see you on the chain gang. I think this is a good news story, and I think we should, all members, take responsibility for this item. It's certainly good news that the government has provided this money. It's good news that the council is able to provide its support to the bus service. I do think that we've got an obligation, though, to make it a bit more personal, because when you read this item, it does seem a bit bureaucratic. It says there's some government money, the bus operators are operating, and the council's giving some subsidy. Whereas what really we're talking about is a people business. You know, bus services run on people. Train operators are business people who want to make money out of operating buses. And passengers like to have travel. And we obviously, from a people point of view, we want more people to be participating in public transport and less on the roads doing their own thing in their own cars. So this is a great opportunity for us, really, as individuals. We should be discussing with our constituents, our divisional constituents, about getting more people out on the bus and use this as an opportunity for 6 months of launch of the positive news. I've got, I believe, I lose count, I think I've got about 5 residents' associations in my division, depending on how they classify their responsibility. A lot of them overlap, but they all are very interested in bus services because they've got people lobbying them as well. And in 2 cases, there are people who are regarded as being the bus champions. And Councillor David Williams might well have heard from 1 or 2 of them because they're regularly writing to me and they're regularly saying, what about this, what about that? Councillor David Smith referred to the cost of a sign, for instance, that I get lobbied as well. You know, why don't we have a sign for this new service? Why don't we have the new estates being provided with new bus services instantly? And forever there's this traction that we've got with individuals who are very concerned about this. And I actually see this as a win-win, because the more people who are using the bus services, the better. The more people who are on them make the services more viable for the transport operators. And we obviously want, as I say, more people off the roads doing damage to our potholes. So this is so much of a win-win that it's really a challenge for us to talk to our residents' associations. I've got 1 parish in my division because it's the city, but I'm sure parish councils can be lobbied, lobby material as well. And the more that members see that as their challenge to get their activists talking to bus companies and getting improvements. It's not a matter of just retaining the service we've got. It's looking for this as 6 months of let's launch it and get some more people out and improve the service. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Richard Cox, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and many congratulations on your appointment. I welcome this, but I think, as Councillor Greatrix has just said, I think there's a lot we can be doing that we don't lose our bus services. Certainly in my rural division, we have had the timetables cut, and what's worse actually is the reliability of what service is left, where buses break down, don't turn up, etc. Now that can mean that people miss their appointments, etc., wherever, and it's just not good enough. So I do welcome it, but I do honestly believe we've got a lot more to do in terms of, as a county, to lobby our bus companies, as individual councillors to lobby, and as Councillor Greatrix has said, get out to our parishes as well, to get them also lobbying in terms of making sure that we try and get more people using the bus services that are available to us. Otherwise, it's going to be the end of them if we're not careful. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Charlotte Atkins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Buses are vital for connecting people and communities, and that's particularly for the young, for the older people and people on low incomes. So I welcome this additional money. But bus use has been in decline for the last 70 years. And the pandemic has thrown the whole problem of falling bus use into a harsh new reality. So surely we can't just rely on doing what we've done in the past in rebuilding our bus services and expect a different result. Shouldn't we look at, if we obviously want to get people out of their cars, even for a short period, you know, if we are committed to better air quality, to our ambitions for climate change, and indeed for public health, because people walk to bus stops and get more active. But having said that, we can't just do more of the same. We do have to look at working with our partners to support innovation, such as demand-responsive transport, shared community transport, and better integration between operators. You know, if we really want these buses to be operational, we really have to find different ways of doing it. Otherwise, we will leave people totally stranded and isolated, particularly in rural areas, but not just in rural areas. I mean, the last bus from Leek to Stoke is something like 7 o'clock in the evening, and likewise the same way back. And a lot of people don't have the privilege of the ability to drive, and we do have to think about that. I know that ministers get very excited, government ministers get very excited about rail travel, but really bus travel is far more important to communities, particularly to communities in Staffordshire. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Derek Hookfield, please.
I don't know whether to congratulate you or feel sorry for you, to tell you the honest truth, right, because it means you've got to put up another 12 months with me. And with my aggravation is that I always go around and aggravate everybody. Right, can I just say, as far as the concessions and the bus passes, right, absolutely fantastic. And I'm speaking on behalf of every old age pensioner in Staffordshire, matter of fact, in the country. I think you've got to look at it from the point of view, if we hadn't got the bus passes, a lot of these pensioners, right, and the pension isn't brilliant, and we've all got to admit it, wouldn't be able to afford, right, a taxi or things like that to go out. So in other words, they'd be stuck there in their own homes, just deteriorating, meeting nobody. Some of these pensioners live on their own, and there's a hell of a lot of those people. And we've got to look at it from the point of view, right, by going down, and I'll give it from my area, going down into Newcastle, and they meet up with the friends, and they go in and have a coffee, right, which keeps the cafes open, right, and these people, right, we need to look after them. And I'm a young old age pensioner, you notice the young bit, right, and I'm one of them. I don't know whether you have to declare an interest on something like this, I haven't got a clue. Right, but I mean, at the end of the day, right, somebody's got to stand up and speak up for these people, because the old age pensioners, and a lot of these old age pensioners, went through what you call really bad times. We talk about the bad times are coming. When I was a lad, and I'm going back some time now, right? 18th century. See, I knew it was a long time ago. Right, but and I'll say it again, when I was a lad, right, you used to have holes in your shoes, put a piece of cardboard in. You used to have your socks, you used to sit there for hours on end, darning your socks. You couldn't go out and just throw them in the bin and go out and buy another pair, and that's how it was. When we used to have butter, and you used to get the milk, and you used to sit there half the day, stirring it up so we could have some butter. Right? And this is what happened. These young ones today, they don't really know yet what it's all about. And we've been through the bad times, we went through the war, and everything else that went with it. Pardon? Can I just say, right, that the concessionary fares and any bus that's been taken off or anything, right, we've got to try to do something about it, because we've got to think very careful about these elderly people. And then we can go from the elderly, and if I remember right, and I still think it's there, where these young ones that are looking for a job, right, they paid so much for the bus fares. So we take any buses off, things like that, then these young ones won't be able to go out and get a job, right? Because that's what today's generation, they don't believe in walking. When I was a lad again, right, we walked everywhere, right? Because you couldn't afford the bus fare. You had to walk, and that's how it was. And I could go on, Mr. Chairman, and go on, but I won't, right? I'll leave it there and let you get on with it. Congratulations.
Councillor Huckfield, I look forward to working with you for the next 12 months. You always brighten the chamber up, so thank you for that. Councillor Tom Loughborough-Rudd, please.
It's an honour to follow Councillor Huckfield, even though I don't think I'll ever match him. But I also use a bus pass because I'm autistic. In fact, I use a bus to get here. So I welcome this. My division of Burntwood is in between Cannock, Lichfield and Walsall. And I'd like to thank the Cabinet Member of Highways in particular for last year, because during the pandemic, they cut the 8 bus routes that goes to Walsall, and would have been a disaster. So I'm privileged, unlike many members of this area, to have bus services on a Sunday. And I hope that across the county, that because I feel a great amount of responsibility, because I have young people in my constituents, people who travel all the way across to Birmingham. In fact, a lot of my constituents travel to Birmingham. And in the future economy, I think we need to think about that, and we need to think about how our bus connectivity works. I mean, I like the design of Lichfield, but you can, of course, get off the bus and go straight to train station or Stafford. I think that's the sort of thing we can do. But I commend the council and the government for maintaining bus services, and I hope that we can, in the future, make sure that we not just improve on what we've got, work with our bus companies to expand on areas like the rural areas that desperately deserve the services that, in the modern 21st century, they deserve.
Thank you. Councillor David Smith, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think in the number of times I've popped up and down this morning, I haven't congratulated you. So please accept my congratulations. Chairman, we spread the margarine very thinly on the bread, but do it very effectively with the amount of resources that we have. But I wonder whether the time is coming where we need to rethink whether in the rural areas, rural buses are actually the answer to the solution. I'm under some pressure from my own constituents to start looking at whether ring and ride is a better solution. We have a particular problem that because we are a border town, we have to go into Aldridge and Walsall and all sorts of areas because that's where doctors are, that's where the dentist is, and that's where so many things happen that a ring and ride service would be much more effective than having a bus every 4 hours that doesn't go where they want it to. So I really think that at some sort of stage we ought to have a very, very good, deep rethink on whether what we're currently doing is the best answer to the problem. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Jill Hood, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm really thrilled to hear that we're going to be able to provide local buses. Within my division, the Town Council actually tried to put on a free bus, which covered the whole of Stone Urban. And I think we had about 2 people a week use that bus. It was a total failure. But I'm always getting asked day after day, what are you going to do about the bus service? I'm stuck. But of course we have the problem that it's mostly the elderly who use the bus services. And for them to get on a bus is great, but then they've got their bags and they're incapable of walking from the bus to their homes because they buy such huge amounts of shopping. And Councillor Smith, what an excellent idea for a ring and ride. But I'm also mindful, and I've had to speak on this, that I am under considerable pressure from a large number of parents who can't get a bus simply to take their children to work, to school in the morning, I beg your pardon. They're walking down long, dark country lanes, dangerous country lanes, and there doesn't seem any answer to this. And I just wonder if we would be able to use this bus service to give them some hope and some help for the future, because these children are our future. And for us to get them to school, to learn, to study, to get the qualifications, we need transport for them. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Saeed Hussain, please.
Thank you, Chair. It was a privilege to follow Councillor David Wakefield's. Can anyone? Mr. Drake, yeah. And I respect his wisdom and his privilege. He has, because, Mr. Chairman, he has the privilege to follow. He has the privilege to remember the first half of last century. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also, I slightly, with respect, I would like to add something, that today's young, they offer their life for their country. I found them, they offered their service as volunteers during our COVID crisis as well. So all my respect and all my admiration goes to the youngs as well. And at the same time, I also offer my sincere honor and respect to our elders as well. Thank you.
Thank you. From the first part, I thought you trained to be a comedian. Councillor Mark DeVille, please.
Chairman, thank you. Chairman, you were right a few minutes ago. Councillor Huckfield does brighten up this chamber, doesn't he? I think it's better for him. Myself, being one of the younger members of this council, Chairman, I can relate to Mrs. Charlotte Atkins' comments earlier about the importance of bus transport, particularly in the rural areas, particularly for the elderly people. It's crucial, isn't it? But I think Richard Cox makes an excellent point that, yes, there's more work to do from us, but there's much more work to do also, Chairman, from the bus companies. I think they've got a massive part to play in the regular service, the reliability of service and the quality of service. And you're right, Richard, you know, that's something that we've got to constantly lobby bus companies on. What we don't want, Chairman, is to constantly pay concessions to bus companies and see these buses running all over the county with 2 and 3 people on. And someone said earlier, if you don't use it, you will lose it. So I think it's right, and we'll take away from this meeting that yes, we do need to work closely and do work closely with bus companies. We'll continue to lobby bus companies, and absolutely right, Councillor Atkins, improvements are needed with the service of bus companies. And of course, Derek, you'll be delighted to know that the concessions, these concessions that do end in October, don't affect in any way the bus passes that you were referring to. They are essential and they will remain. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Parry, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm probably not far behind Derek Oakfield, but thanks. I know. But walking as a youngster, you don't know you're born. Walking out, it's hands and knees for me when I was a youngster. Luxury, exactly. Luxury walking. I think it's really important that we recognise what this is about. This is a temporary measure to help bus companies, if you like, to recover from the pandemic and to try and get back on their feet as much as they can. Providing adequate bus services in a rural county, and all rural counties suffer from the same problem, is a really complex issue. And I don't think anywhere in the country has got this right. Go to any rural county that's similar profile to this, you will find the same complaints, the same concerns. The problem is, because we're rural, car ownership is above 90%. So if you want buses, throw your keys over there and we can get the buses back. But at the moment, that's not the case, is it? And that's because we have infinite journeys to complete. It's not like a city where you've got a suburb and a city centre, or places of work over there, and places where people live as they used to, so that those journeys were linear. These are infinite. Journeys that everybody in this council chamber might want to make will be from point A to point B, and they'll all be different. Trying to organise transport, public transport, subsidised or not, to be able to complete that kind of matrix of journeys is extremely complex. And yes, what we do want is for the market to respond to the needs of the consumer, and that might be more micro-style transport rather than buses that tend to be boxes of fresh air, as the experiment in Stone seem to indicate. So this is not a subsidy forever. Let's remember, councils do not run bus services. Private companies run bus services. We help where we can to subsidise routes, not buses, where we feel those routes are essential, i.e. a hospital bus or something like that. When we reviewed this, going back 3 or 4 years, when we first started to look at the amount of money that this council was spending, taxpayers' money on journeys, we saw subsidies per passenger, per route. Some of them were over £10, as high as, in some cases, Mr. Atkins' division, I think it was, we found one as high as £16 per individual passenger journey. 20. We could have sent a stretched limo round to their house to pick them up and take to wherever they were going, almost as cheaply. Ridiculous. Now, if I said to anybody, how much should I pay that bus company to take this person on that journey, pay them, as well as the fare, what would they say to me? Well, maybe 50 pence, maybe £1 perhaps. £15, £20, I wouldn't be able to find anybody who would take that deal. Any taxpayer would take that deal. I didn't think so. So we have to be sensible about this. Taxpayers' money should not necessarily be used to subsidise private businesses. It's not our job. What our job is to try and alleviate hardship or difficulty. And that's where we should target our interest. And the people who are mostly suffer from this, who are the people who don't have cars or can't have cars, or who live in rural areas where they don't have access to a bus stop. But we can't necessarily find an easy solution to this, which is affordable, doable, repeatable, and dependable. We can't. Some people who've got a bus, you're lucky. Parts of my division haven't seen a bus since the Beatles were #1, and that's a while ago. So this is not an easy one to charge. So let's not raise expectations in this chamber this morning for people out there that somehow we've found the silver bullet to this and we're going to start subsidising buses again and everybody's going to get a bus service. It's not going to happen, sadly. We'd like it, very much we'd like it, but this is not a metropolis. This is not London. This is not Birmingham. This is not Manchester. This is a place with lots of grass and little lanes that go from one place to another place, lots of villages. Very difficult to solve this problem. Let's make sure we're measured about this.
Thank you. Councillor Jonathan Price, please.
Thank you again, Chairman. Just on the point that Councillor Hood raised about dangerous walking routes for pupils, the school transport team checks all of those routes to make sure that they are safe and within a certain distance as well. And I believe Councillor Williams' team also does that work alongside. So if you do have any specific cases, if you want to raise them with me outside of this meeting, I'll be more than happy to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Northcote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a complex area. I obviously live in a predominantly rural area, and the County Council doesn't run bus services. But what's inherently wrong with the bus companies, and I've seen this repeatedly, and I'm getting immense pressure from people in my area that use the bus service, is that bus companies really do need to get their act together. And we need to press home, obviously this is a welcome addition, but we need to still press home the message that they're killing bus services in the rural area. One of the quickest ways that they do that, and that I've observed and I've had reported to myself, is that bus companies repeatedly change curfew times. They don't even publish the times for the local people to actually know about it, so they don't know when the buses are going to run, how often, or at all. This is not sustainable. It's inherently wrong that the bus companies can't get this basic thing right with customers, and I do believe that there's something else going on here other than trying to kill bus services, which they're having a really good effect at the moment in doing. We need to address that first and foremost before anything else is done. We need this reliability issue sorted out and a commitment from bus companies that they're going to provide the services, otherwise it will not work. It will let the pensions down in the rural areas especially that rely on bus services. But unless they publish the times when they do make these changes, that will not work at all. And that is happening repeatedly in my division. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor David Williams, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, everybody, for your comments. I think at the start of this project, they're actually saying that the bus industry has not recovered from the effects of the pandemic is a little bit of an understatement in a lot of areas. We've got about 20%, 26% pre-COVID patronage, huge amount of losses, combining with the fact that bus companies have now can't use the red diesel and fuel prices have gone up. There's an increasing pressure on buses. It's been spoken about quite a few times, and Derek, when you said it about us removing buses, we don't remove buses because we don't run buses. What we have done is we've agreed to pay at full pre-COVID prices the bus revenue grant until October. Unfortunately, in October, that will go. This council made at a very quick notice and did a lot of work, and I have to say, well done to the actual officers that did this, placed in a bus service improvement programme, asking for a grant of £113 million towards our bus services. Not one penny of that was ever going to be going on concessionary travel. Not one penny of that was ever going to be going on new routes. That was to improve the bus services within Staffordshire. That was to make the buses more aware and allow us to carry on with an enhanced partnership and give the residents and the people who use the buses a better service and a better feeling of when they've done that. Unfortunately, we got nothing. I don't think any of the Shire counties got anything in that. And it is a bit of a blow that we got absolutely nothing. But this council and my officers are still carrying on, and we're still going to be coming out with an enhanced partnership. So this working and where we have members who have ideas that they might need for their areas, they can work with us, and we will look to see if the bus companies would wish to do that. But we are not about to start running buses. We are going to work with bus companies to try and show that they will provide the services we want, but we have to, really have to ensure that we appreciate the fact they are under pressure. I know Councillor Edgeler in a previous meeting said about use it or lose it. That has never been more prevalent. And this is a real thing that we're not doing as users of buses. 26% of pre-COVID patronages is unsustainable. And so I'm happy to work with members, and our officers are happy to work with the bus companies to see if we can provide better services, more different types of services, more bespoke services. But at the end of the day, very much like we've always said, we don't run bus services. We'll work with bus services to see what we can get supplied. But if you don't use it, you will lose it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Leader of the Council, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a subject that inspires a great deal of passion, the services of our rural communities. How many times have we seen bus services being withdrawn, local people getting a petition up, approaching you, asking you what you're doing about it, and then equally a local shop in a village that shuts down. You ask the residents of that village, so how frequently did you use the shop? So I bought a tin of beans 2 weeks ago. That's not going to do it. The use it or lose it thing is really important. It applies to shops as it does to buses. But bus companies are businesses, and businesses are in the business of solving problems. Previously, bus services could easily rely on, my business is getting you from point A to point B, and that's all I need to do. Nowadays, they need to innovate to say, it's not about getting from point A to point B, it's also what do I need to do to get people on the buses? And that's the thing, there's this persistent assumption by the bus companies that all they need to do is to get people on the bus to get them from point A to point B. And when we're talking about people who are looking at this in Whitehall, it's clear that the solutions they're presenting are those that are based around a large metropolis. I've been asked consistently by ministers when having the meetings, don't come up with the usual solutions. We don't want to hear any more ring and ride solutions. They're not for the 21st century. If there were solutions about for rural counties, shire counties, then surely we would be using them and we would be implementing them. It isn't as straightforward as that. But as Councillor Parry points out, and indeed Councillor Williams, this is just but a temporary measure to see us through to the autumn. After that, the money stops. We need to be aware of that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Staffordshire means back to business. Councillor Simon Tagg, do you want to speak? Okay, Councillor Philip Hudson then, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on your appointment, and I look forward to seeing you around Staffordshire during the year.
Also, congratulations on yours for East Staffordshire.
Okay. A couple of meetings ago, I brought to the Chamber the fate of Elks Biscuits in Uttoxeter. There was a lot of misinformation, a lot of scaremongering, and we thought that the company was going to close and be lots of redundancies. However, that's not the case. I asked the Cabinet member for help. Thank you, Councillor White, for your help. We intervened and we contacted Elks and they said, actually, we don't need your help because there isn't a problem. We're not going to close. We're not going to make redundancies. In fact, we're going to expand the business. So it was great this last week to have a visit from Cabinet Minister Jacob Rees-Mogg, who visited the factory, was told all about the restructuring and the very positive future for that local business that will bring more jobs and a better local economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Samantha Thompson, please.
Sorry. Congratulations both of you on your re-election. I'd like to just say that, as you know, Cannock Chase has got the 20 million levelling up fund, which we're very, very excited about. And our town desperately needs it. We are looking, sorry, I'm very nervous, so please excuse me. Our town centre is in desperate need of some love and attention. And with the plans include demolishing the eyesore multi-storey car park, building a cultural hub, and a refurbishment of our popular Prince of Wales Theatre, which is a fantastic place to visit if you ever get the opportunity. And our new town centre, where hopefully will be a mix of restaurants, bars, retail and office space. We are at Cannock Chase really looking forward to this because this is something Cannock has needed for such a long time. So if anybody ever gets the opportunity to come to Cannock, please do. Happily take you around, happily show you our hotspots. So you're all welcome. Thank you. And sorry for the nervous.
Thank you. There's no need to be nervous at all. You spoke well. Thank you. Councillor Mark Whittington, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'm going to be slightly parochial and talk about the I think point 1 on page 30, which is around the future high street deals. I know that Stafford's got somewhere in the region of £20 million, but this is an ongoing project. It's not about what we're looking to in the future. It's what we're doing now and as we go forwards. And I think the county's got a lot to say in terms of the work that's been done around the Shire Hall. I did hear last week that the Enterprise Centre, which is in the old library at the back of the Shire Hall, is actually nearly completed, so there'll be sort of, and they are now asking businesses if they're interested in taking space there. And I think a good bit of news is that the Stafford Chamber, which was here in county buildings at one time, moved outside of county onto an industrial estate, but they're coming back to Stafford, to the Shire Hall, and they'll be an anchor tenant, and I'm sure they'll drag other companies in because of the work they do and how important it is. I think one thing that I'd like to flag up is that I think the county paid something like, got a grant of £1.4 million. When we did the work with Prince's Trust, somewhere in the region of £7 million was needed. So it isn't finished, the Shire Hall. There's still much more that we've got to do in aspirations. But the one thing about Staffordshire County Council is it looks at aspirations and then it chases those aspirations and delivers. So I'm looking forward to what happens there, what happens with the district in terms of Stafford Town Centre, this £20 million. I want to see the county town back thriving and taking its place again as one of the, one of the best towns in Staffordshire. So, and then the other, there's some really good news in this article. The other one around, and we mentioned it earlier, we had 96.4% coverage of superfast broadband. This has been announced that there's going to be 100 gigabit, again an aspiration by 2030. But please don't remember, and I think Tina's just said it, superfast was great when it was superfast, but now we need gigabit. And it's going to be a whole lot of new infrastructure needed to get that in place. But it is important. It's so important for industry, so important for people. Even socially, people who can't get on the bus, can't move around, can use, as we know from the last 2 years, can use technology to get in touch with friends and relatives, whether they're in Cannock or whether they're in Canberra, all around the world. So it's important that we follow that aspiration for 100% gigabit. And I think I've said too before, any help I can do with my sort of contacts, it's fantastic that we're even thinking of doing this. And very finally, and it goes back to an earlier point, I think Charlotte Atkins said, skills. It says here, and it's really important, and I know Darryl and the team have worked really hard on this, 50% rise of adults in Staffordshire with level 4 plus qualifications. And that's down to everybody, to all the partners. But in terms of Stafford again, and Newcastle and Stafford College, which I was chair of at one point, Karen Dobson, who's a retiring chief exec, has done a fantastic job. She's been really committed, and thanks to her, and also Jeremy Pert for the work he's doing on the trustees. So really good news stories, and I'm sorry to keep bringing them up, but I think it's important that we sort of hail the work that's being done within towns in Staffordshire and keeping Staffordshire great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Graham Hutton, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Congratulations to you and your deputy. I'd like to thank Councillor Philip White, Councillor Stephen Sweeney, Councillor Simon Tagg for the work that they're doing in bringing jobs to my division. They have been incredibly successful, and I've already heard that other companies are moving in, so the report in front of us is out of date. It's even better than it was. And with the government's recent announcement that there are more job vacancies than people on benefits is quite amazing. So again, thank you to those three councillors for the support they're doing in my division and making it a fantastic place to come and work.
Thank you. Councillor Mark DeVille, please.
Chairman, thank you. Just to add to Mr Winnington's comments, I visited the Shire Hall, the works that are going on at the Shire Hall only last week. Absolutely fantastic, Chairman. It's the work that's happening there and the renovations around the Shire Hall is great for local businesses, and it's great for Stafford Town Centre. And it's just another exciting project, isn't it, on top of the great projects that we've got at Leek, at Cheadle, at Cannock, and of course in Newcastle. So there's a real feel-good factor going round Staffordshire at the moment, Chairman, and isn't that great? We've got the Queen's baton for the Commonwealth Games passing through the county, and that's fantastic. And I think that, you know, having gone through the 2 years or 2.5 years that we went through, probably the worst of all of our lifetimes, that feel-good factor is definitely back in this county, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor David Smith, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I've renamed the item on the agenda that we've got here. Instead of calling it Staffordshire means back to business, which is an intention, I've renamed it as Staffordshire in action, because it's not something that we're planning to do, it's something we're actually doing. And if I could just take a moment to recount something that happened yesterday. I was talking to one of the owners of high-tech business development in my division, and he explained to me that he'd got a company that wanted to make a multi-million-pound investment in my division, and I didn't need that telling to me twice. So they were saying that they came from Yorkshire, the company that wanted to invest, and wanted to feel that they could get the same support in Staffordshire that they were getting in Yorkshire. So one phone call to the deputy leader and things start to fall into action. And I have the owner of the business park has been trying to ring me while I'm in council this morning, and I'm itching to get to lunchtime and have a listen to what he's got to say. But I think what he will be saying to me is that he has already had a call from Staffordshire County Council and that they have set up a meeting to explain what we've got in our investment programme and also to look at what his proposals are. And I think that's what it's all about, Chairman, and I commend the work this council is doing.
Thank you. Councillor Gillian Pardesi.
Thank you, Chair. I do hate to rain on everyone's parade, but we also have a sentence here that says Staffordshire saw vacancies increase by more than 28% in a very short period of time. That then in reality means that there are still industries, businesses such as the hospitality sector, those providing care, who are still struggling to find staff, and businesses are still struggling to revive from the pandemic and continue to survive and thrive. So we need to get things into perspective, Chair. Thank you.
I'll call Councillor Hookfield to try and put some sun back on the parade then.
I shall make it very quick, Chairman. Can I just say, I've got a news press release here, right, for my area, right, of Nutton, right, and when you come to look over the years, right, Nutton has become one of the most deprived areas, right, in the whole of Staffordshire. And the reason for that is because when Labour were in control, basically they shut everything down. They lost everything, the doctor's surgery, you name it, it all went, the leisure centre. And now the Conservatives have come in, right, and they're doing this levelling up. On the levelling up, we're going to have millions of pounds spent. Can't believe it, can you? Right? And something like this really is worth shouting about. And I don't think, really, as the Conservatives, we aren't shouting loud enough. Right? Let the people know exactly what is going on with the area. In Newcastle alone, they're going to have millions of pounds spent in Newcastle alone. Highways, millions of pounds being spent on highways in Newcastle. I thought you'd cheer, right? And when you come look at it, Mr. Chairman, right, and the more that we think about it, right, the more it takes a lot of believing, right? Because people look at it and say, are you sure? The Conservatives spending money in our areas, we're classed as a Labour area, right? The Conservatives don't spend money in our areas, but they do. And tonight, right, the consultation starts, right? And on Saturday as well, within the Nutton area, right? The consultation, and people can go along and see the plans and everything and have their say. They've never had the say before. They just come along and did it. They shut everything down without any consultation whatsoever, right? And I was really pleased, right, and I still am pleased, right, that Newcastle has finally been put on the map. It isn't just Newcastle that spouts or Newcastle that stinks, right? It's the Newcastle, right, that people are realising, right, exists, right? And Boris Johnson can go to Stoke-on-Trent and he can go to Staffordshire. What a pity he can't find his way down the road to a little area called Newcastle-under-Lyme. Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Philip White, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just one thing to say about feeling nervous when you speak in a room like this. Anyone who doesn't, whether they look like they do or not, is a bit of a fool, because it's a great opportunity to make yourself look daft if you say the wrong thing, isn't it? But I felt all of the speakers on this debate made really, really good points. Our earlier items were about the strategy. This is about the outputs, and they're all there for everyone to see, so I'm not going to list them all. The overall point is we have a thriving economy, that we work hard to play our part in making sure that it keeps doing the things that it's doing, and that fundamentally is creating those jobs and opportunities for people. To Councillor Pardesi's point, because it is a serious point, we want our businesses to have the people they need in order to continue to fuel that growth. We do want competition for those employees, because that does drive up the quality of the jobs that people want to offer, and it drives innovation in terms of taking the lower skilled and more process-driven jobs and looking to find other ways to deliver those. But it is important. One scheme that I'll mention to her, because it is fundamentally for businesses to make their business attractive to employees, but we do play our part where we can. We will be coming to this council later this year with our jobs brokerage scheme, which is something that we're developing to provide an effective local way of linking jobs in Staffordshire with people who want those jobs. So we are playing our part in that, but it is a serious point and I respect it. The only thing I'll highlight in the report that colleagues haven't mentioned is our investment prospectus. We've talked about our strategy earlier today, we've talked about our outputs, but there are things that sit in between, like our investment prospectus, which we launched a few weeks ago for the first time, bringing together with all 8 of our districts and boroughs, all of the opportunities that we have in Staffordshire for businesses to come here and invest. And when they do, as Councillor Smith said, they will get a very warm welcome, provided they are offering employment opportunities that respect our desire to see higher skilled, higher paid jobs for our employees. So thank you, colleagues, and thank you to everybody who works so hard to make a success of business in Staffordshire.
Thank you. Integrated Performance Report, Quarter 4, 21-22. Councillor Colin Greatrix, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we've already spoken a few times about the post-pandemic recovery period, and this particular quarter, I think, was very much of that nature. We had the review of this by Corporate Review on the 10th of May, and I think we recognise the amount of uncertainty that there is, and perhaps we sympathise with the Cabinet in relation to that, because some of the subjects that we were discussing and querying, quite clearly it's difficult for the Cabinet to answer. We recognise the second paragraph where it says there's a financial risk in adult social care and families and communities. We were interested in knowing when the shortfall detail would be known, and obviously that's one of the many things that it's difficult to answer. We've already spoken earlier about mental health and the effects that would have. Things like domestic abuse was under discussion, and we certainly are aware of the fact there's a need to watch for the post-pandemic effects that we don't yet know about. It's the sort of things that are lurking. And we also question the Council's ability to deal with things like debt recovery in a time when there's such hardship. And we challenge the fact that we might need to review our procedures to make sure that we're not just chasing debts when it could cause untold problems. I won't mention bus services. We've had a good old airing of that, but it was the subject of our corporate review of that as well. We also spent a lot of time, we've just had the last item talking about employment opportunities and development and that nature, but we recognise the need to innovate, and we discussed the corporate review paper of the consideration of this report. We recognise that innovation is part of making sure that we don't just look for employment, we look for the right sort of employment and look for the right sort of new jobs where they're relevant. The only other thing I'd bring out that we discussed in corporate review is the ongoing improvement of what I call the dashboard. Other people might call key performance indicators, but we've now got a suite of graphs that are available to all members of the Cabinet, clearly, but also all members of corporate review. And what I would say to other members who are not on Cabinet or corporate review, if you haven't seen them, go on one of the previous papers online and you will see quite a useful series of graphs which I think are quite telling in terms of trends. They're quite useful, I think, to highlight certain areas that members might be interested in, if they're not familiar with them, through not being part of a committee where they're being seen themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Lead of the Council, please.
Only briefly, Mr Chairman, to thank the members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, not just Councillor Greatorex's committee, but all members of Overview and Scrutiny Committee, because without your dedication and hard work, the decision-making process of this council wouldn't be as good as it is. So I just wanted to take that opportunity, having had a very well, a comprehensive summing up by Councillor Greatorex.
Thank you. Formal report of the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman. Councillor Saeed Hussain.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to say I welcome this judgment actually, and am I just right saying that there is an important precedence there we have established because of getting this judgment, because of a simply time lapse. We should consider the merit of the case first. I don't want to make any comment on the fact of this case because of the legal professional privilege or anything. Can we be assured in the future, not just the time lapse, Mr. Chairman, we should consider the merit and the merit of the case as well, so that we can get an extended time limit to lodge any complaint procedure. Thank you.
Councillor Mark Sutton, please.
Perhaps I'd like to give some reassurance to the member opposite that there's a whole suite of things taken into consideration before a decision is made whether to accept a complaint for investigation or not. And I speak particularly around complaints we receive around children's services. I don't necessarily want to go into the exact details of this complaint here at this moment in time. I'm happy to have a word outside of this chamber with the member opposite to give him some details. But what I can say is that we have taken completely on board the view that the local government ombudsman had and comply completely with what they say, and we will learn as an organisation from their recommendation.
Thank you. Framework agreement for demolition services. Summer events. Councillor Caroline Trowbridge, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and may I offer my congratulations to you both as well. I must be the last person in the chamber, so that can maybe stop now. Summer events, wow, lovely. So many things happening. We've had over 40 road closures in Stafford alone for people putting on events for the Queen's Jubilee. The 2nd, 4th and 5th, we've got Jubilee events at Victoria Park. Please come along, get involved. The 2nd, we're lighting the Queen's Beacon. On the 3rd, we've got an event in the town celebrating everything about the Queen. June the 12th, you talk here about the Commonwealth Games, the Ironman, whether you want to go down to the start at Chasewater for 7 o'clock in the morning to watch a 1.2 mile swim, not my cup of tea, or come to Stafford for the finish line to see all those winners, and anyone who can do to do an Ironman must be a winner. It's not just about the first ones coming across. Oh yes, we have a winner in the chamber, don't we? That's right. It's not something I could do, that is for sure. Or whether you want to come along to the Commonwealth Games on July the 19th and watch some brilliant athletes and volunteer carrying the torch. Please come along to Stafford. It is our county town. It is involved in all of these events and majorly so, maybe down to the excellent Cabinet Member for Leisure.
Thank you. Councillor Philippa Hayden, please.
Thank you, Chair. May I also congratulate yourself and Councillor Hewitt on your reappointment. Jubilee celebrations across the Cannock Chase district are being held over the 3rd and 4th of June. Each event will be having commemorative coins, chocolate lollies and cakes, which are all being sourced locally. Cannock Town Centre, the Community Centre playing fields at Norton, Cannock Stadium, Pensford Park, Rugeley Town Centre, Bridgetown Working Men's Club and Heath Hayes Park will all be having events suitable for families. Also, on the 23rd of July, Cannock Chase District are delighted to officially welcome the Queen's Baton. It will be following the Wolseley Road to Horse Fair Rugeley, Hensford Park finishing at Hensford Town Centre, then on to Church Street finishing on Park Road in Cannock. We're also lucky to have a district councillor that will be carrying a baton. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Victoria Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations to yourself and to Councillor Hewitt as well. When I were a lass, I remember the Silver Jubilee, but that was a long, long time ago. I can't remember which Queen. It was absolutely, it's absolutely wonderful to feel that the buzz that's happening around the county just now, and I think with the weather improving, we're all feeling a little more positive, and there's really something to look forward to here in Staffordshire this year. I've been hearing about many voluntary groups and organisations who've been putting together events to celebrate the Platinum Jubilee. We've got things such as welly wanging in Treasle. We've got bunting that's been asked for in Kings Bromley, and we've put a lot of funding through the community fund for that. So Staffordshire County Council is really helping to help everybody to celebrate, which is a really, really great thing. And as others have said, of course, there are other events this summer that the county is showcasing, the Queen's Baton Relay, the bike trials, Ironman with our leader, which is a spectacle in itself. And I feel that Staffordshire this year, more than any other, is really going to come into its own. It's the place to be this year. So I wholeheartedly wish everybody a really fantastic summer in sunny Staffordshire. Thank you.
Thank you. Lead the council, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's interesting to note the sort of decline in enthusiasm in sort of congratulating you as the meeting's gone on. It's now sort of congratulations. Right, where was I? But I'm sure it's still well meant. What a great summer of events we can all look forward to. First summer post-pandemic. I hope everybody gets involved. A lot of you have been involved in organising events in your local area, and that's absolutely wonderful to see. I think I just want to do a little bit of management of expectations about the Ironman. Don't expect me to cross the line looking A, enthusiastic, B, fresh, and C, not smelling a lot. Alive, yes. It could be on hands and knees. And anybody offering to do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, David Smith, you're warmly welcome to have a go if you fancy. Gratefully received. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. We're now going to have a break from this agenda. There are 4 members of our council who are going to receive Long Service Good Conduct Awards. I agree with the long service, but where the good conduct's come from, I don't know. So I will be now led by Mr. Bradbury. You've got no chance. It gives me great pleasure to invite the following members to come forward and receive their Long Service Awards in recognition of time and effort they have willingly given as members of the County Council. The first name on the list was John Francis. But he's gone, I'm told. So we'll see him in 4 years' time, shall we? Okay. The next one is Mr. Ian Lawton. Mr. Lawton, it gives me great pleasure as a chairman to present this to a past chairman of the County Council, the last man who did 3 years as chairman. So it's great to have you back with us after a long illness. So, but that's your certificate.
Thank you
for
very
the
much,
service you've given to this council over so many years, and also someone to tell the time by. A new wristwatch.
Thank you.
Ian, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Can I just say what a pleasure it has been to be a councillor for quite some time now, and to get to know you all and people who've been here before you. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're all genuine people, and it's great to be amongst you. I'm sorry I've been away so long, but these things happen. I'm told by the surgeons, you don't acquire these illnesses. You don't get these illnesses, you acquire them. Well, I acquired 2. This one's nearly over with, and they're really giving me some hammer with the cancer now. So I hope to be back with you full time as soon as I can. Either that or in a graveyard somewhere. Anyway, good luck. Thank you. And have a good year on it.
Councillor Steve Sweeney, please. Steve, congratulations.
Thank you very much, mate.
12 years, long service.
12 years,
conduct.
12 years, yes.
Where's it gone?
It just flies. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's a bit silent, get a standing ovation, but never mind. I think we'll all agree that seeing Ian in his place today has made the day. Certainly has for me, anyway. Thank you for this. I know I've got a bit of a reputation for a bit of a miserable git. In fact, I think Councillor Tagg says I'm the butt of humour at the cabinet because I never smile. So there you go, I smiled. But anyway, no, thanks for this. It's been that was quick. It was quick. But I do another one. Go on. Thank you, Victoria. Yeah, you put that on your pictures now, can't you, your frame? Yeah, thank you. But no, thank you. It's been a great honour. It's been a great honour to serve the people of Newcastle South for 12 years. I mean, obviously, as I said before, Newcastle is the crown in Staffordshire's. It's the jewel rather in Staffordshires crown, and obviously Clayton is the jewel in Newcastle, and then Newcastle South is the jewel in Staffordshire. But thank you. This is a great honour. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And finally, the leader of the council, Iron Man himself. I don't know where your clock is.
There's no clock for me due to cost savings. Thank you very much indeed.
You can have John Francis.
I'm lost for words. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well done. Well done. The following members of the Council are also to receive long service awards, but unfortunately they are unable to join us today. They are Ben Adams, Maureen Compton and Susan Woodward. I think now is the opportune moment to break for lunch. If we say we're back, let's try to be back for 1:45, please. Let's try to be back for 1:45. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. We'll return to the leader's statement. Item 14, supporting people in the local communities. Councillor Anne Edgeler, please.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a saying, if you've not got your health, you've got nothing. So can I just outline some of the main priorities of our Health and Care Committee that I wish to share with you on behalf of our chairman that's not here today. GP access. When people need to see the right medical professional, that they can do so in a timely manner, whether it's face-to-face or virtual. Ambulance waiting times. Overall delays in getting people admitted to hospital, following their stay in hospital, organising a safe discharge to either a nursing home, care home or back to their own home. Pressures within the overall system, from ambulance attendants, including admissions, where necessary to hospital and then delays to discharge from hospital, either to go home or into a nursing or community care. There are pressures at every point leading to some unacceptable patient journeys for some. Delays in referrals for treatment as a result of the pandemic. For example, is there enough collaboration between providers or best practice used to get people seen and treated without delay? Workforce recruitment and career developments across the NHS and social care, making sure training is the best that can be given. The collaboration across key health and social care partners with the creation of the Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent Integrated Care System, better known as the ICS from 1st of July. If there's one lesson we have learned from the pandemic, it is to improve communications to help with the health overall for the residents of Staffordshire. It has to be cost effective and sustainable, spending the Stafford pound in the right place. The other factor we have to consider is the mental health for all people in all age groups. I'm sorry I have to mention health again, but there we go. COVID, as we all know, has had a major impact on people's health and well-being. Mental health, we have to start and consider mental health the same way as we concentrate on physical health. Mental health will be on our radar for many years to come. It is our job as a committee to ensure we do all we can to prevent people dying in unnecessary circumstances. Thank you, Chairman.
Leader of the Council, please.
Chairman, I said it earlier in the meeting, just once again, Councillor Odger, thank you for everything that you do. As this speech has clearly illustrated, you have such a passion for the subject, and it's wonderful that you keep pushing forward with it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thousands benefit from extra support. Councillor Mark DeVille, please.
Wrong light. This one.
Simon Tagg, please.
Mr. Chairman, congratulations on your appointment as well, and also the Vice Chair. Sorry about the wrong light there. Mark's left us and I pressed his button in between, but I'd just like to speak on this and say As part of the Housing Support Fund, the County Council will be benefiting and working with Beat the Cold and the Staffordshire Community Foundation to develop a new warmth project for 2022 as part of this funding. So that means residents in Staffordshire who are struggling financially to either pay their bills or are dealing with the breakdown of their heating system will be eligible for funding. This will be provided through financial support for energy via either top-up cards for those on prepayment meters or credit card payment directly into the energy supplier for those on a metered account. Eligible residents will also be open to and have, under exceptional circumstances, a top-up grant to contribute to an efficient new boiler. In addition, the County Council is working with Staffordshire Fire and Rescue to scope out the potential for providing direct assistance in replacing inefficient light fittings with new LED bulbs. We will be complementing this through financial support as well for energy bills and increasing energy efficiency across Staffordshire. So this is, these measures will make a real difference to those families most in need, but also will help to advance our carbon reduction agenda across the county. So I really welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Sutton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since this is really a continuation of the COVID support funds that this council has received and all councils have received since towards the end of 2020. And since that time, we've been able to distribute, and including this 5.5 million, been able to distribute almost 17 million pounds worth of support for vulnerable families and families in need. That amounts to 27,000 children that will be supported through the free school meals section of this during the May half term and also during the summer period. And also during the summer period will of course be the holiday activity and food programme for 4 weeks of that holiday that will be in the second full year of its operation, which in itself again provides support, activities and food, as the name suggests, for children who are eligible to free school meals. It's targeted at the most. Not only the children on free school meals will be eligible, part of the funding is for care leavers or care leavers, and of course we are the corporate parents of those care leavers, so we have an ultimate responsibility. They will all receive a £50 voucher from this. We're working with districts and boroughs to support others through the fuel, food and other essential supplies. And that is worked out, the allocations is worked out that on deprivation levels. And the final part of the funding is what my colleague Simon Tagg has alluded to, so I won't go into that detail. But of course, if we are going to go forward and help and assist people going forward, the very, very best thing is some of the things that were outlined earlier by other colleagues around ensuring that everyone in Staffordshire has the opportunity of a good, well-paid job through the economic strategy that we're trying to support everybody with. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Item 16, Helen Riley. Councillor Victoria Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Helen, we've worked together for almost 2 years, and I'm sure to Helen it feels like a great deal longer, putting up with my many questions, which are sometimes considered quite stupid, but never mind, I can't help that. Helen has really been a mainstay for me over this last couple of years. Also an inspiration. You've reached the apex of your career, and it's something that all of us hope that we can achieve at some point. So I'd just like to thank you for everything that you've done and really wish you the very, very best of luck.
Councillor Charlotte Atkins, please.
You're going to be a hard act to follow. I don't envy your successor because it's going to be very, very difficult to fill your shoes. And I mean, I know during your 18 years you've had many top jobs, and so in many ways that makes you uniquely irreplaceable in terms of the County Council. Your wealth of experience means that you've been able to lead the County Council, but also mentor others. I think that's going to be a really important role. And also, you know, to have a woman in such a uniquely strategic position, I think, is absolutely vital. And despite the fact we still have men all around the walls, you know, the fact that you have helped lead the county through very, very difficult times, I think is a real tribute to your abilities and to your ambition. Now, I have to say that what I particularly liked about working with you is if I ask you a straight question, you give me a straight answer. And that's great when I ask difficult questions and you're happy to give me an answer which I know is honest and is not tinged with any sort of political side. So I'm grateful for that. And I know I'm going to really miss that interaction because we've, you know, obviously, inevitably, you differ with officers on things from time to time, but that is the nature of the role. And so I'm sorry to see you go. I know you're going to be impossible to replace, but I wish you well for the future. And I think our loss is going to be much greater than yours. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bob Spencer, please.
Chair, thank you. I won't go over what other people have said, but again, as the current chair of safeguarding, I read the reports that are full of threat and risk, as you'd imagine that they would be in this particular area of our business. And I'd echo what colleagues have said about a straight answer to a straight question. Ellen is usually there. I come out far more reassured that we're doing the right things and we've got the right plans in place. Certainly after reading some of those reports, and I would just echo the fact that you will be sadly missed. Thank you.
Councillor Saeed Hussain, please.
Thank you, Chair. I also would like to echo the tribute that's been said about Helen Riley. My experience shows that whenever we ask something, we have got the straight answer, of course, and in past few months, we had the privilege to have some individuals or personal briefings through our groups as well. And she was so amicable, and also those local government jargons, she make it so simplified for us. And like I said, that with Helen, I also say that we are pretty blessed with an officers team. And whenever we want, as an elected members, we always been getting that cooperations. And that makes our job even easier. And like, I would like to extend my best wishes to her and her families and enjoy your retirement. Now, every day will be a holiday. Thank you.
Councillor Philip Atkins, please.
Oh, hi, Helen. There's only you and me in this room have been here that long. 18 years, blimey. I can remember having a meeting, Chairman, when I had to see John Taylor and Terry Dixon. We had to sort of like legitimise Helen's position because we hadn't actually interviewed anybody and she got this position. But there's all sorts of roles that Helen has done over the years. I think she's one of the rare senior officers that's done absolutely everything apart from one job. But hey ho. And that's where we are. But I think your legacy will be here for many years to come. And what's happened to children's services in particular while you've been doing it and making it, turning it into something different. And we've had a lot of tribulations about that. And a lot of tribulations in when it was development services and policy development. Blimey, you've done the lot. Really done the lot, you know. So, you know, it's really credit to you. And I know Chris will be probably taking you out on bike rides in the countryside. And Georgie will be coming back home and all the other stories that you and I'm not going to repeat them in public, all the other stories that we've had about your family. And I know the circumstances. So, you know, I hope that things get a bit better for you. And hey ho. I really am sorry to see you go. But on the other hand, we all have to do these things and enjoy retirement. It's a bit strange, I'll tell you, but you know, there's lots to do. And Anybody, if you get to see, I've forgotten the name of the programme, there is a programme where you go around and have a look at houses from time to time, but if you ever see a thatched house, partly thatched house in Shropshire, it's Helen's house, and it's really lovely. And, you know, hey ho, you moved from Derbyshire to Shropshire, I don't know how the hell that happened, but anyway, good luck in retirement.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Sutton, please.
So, Helen has been an absolute constant at this local authority for quite a period of time. But I'll talk particularly about the time while I've been the lead member for children's services, because that's when I've had most dealings with Helen. And we've had some great consistency over that period of time. There is a local authority not too far away from us to the south that I understand has had about 9 directors of children's services in 11 years. You know, so it's not an easy job. It's a really, really challenging job. You know, it's got that legal responsibility set in legislation that many other roles within, and most roles within this local authority or any local authority do not have. You know, and I have sat with previous leader, the current leader of the council, and the chief executive, you know, on the safeguarding briefings that we have on a regular basis. You know, and having to deal with those things day in, day out will be a challenge for most people. Helen, as you all know, is not a trained social worker. You know, so when she first got this role, you know, it would have been a massive, steep learning curve. Well, not probably a curve, potentially a straight line. You know, and she has, you know, she has dealt with that tremendously and learnt, and been an absolute rock when I've needed some advice around particular things. She was instrumental in the changes and pushing the changes through to the Children's Safeguarding Board when it went from the Safeguarding Board to the partnership. Wasn't the easiest thing we tried to do in bringing another local authority in, who subsequently are not in our Safeguarding Board anymore. But Helen chaired that board for a period of time in an exemplary manner. My predecessor in this role started the first part of transformation a number of years ago, and you know, Helen was here then, and it's taken some time to get through, but we're there now with that. I don't know how many times I listened to a presentation to a different audience, be that members or partners outside, about transformation. And at the end, it must have been the most boring thing to have to keep doing. But Helen did it each time with enthusiasm, you know, and absolute passion. So my thanks to her regarding that. During the whole of that period, our children's services have been good. Helen has had to deal with regular Ofsted conversations that everybody has to have, and a number of inspections, both within the children's services and within special education needs and disabilities. She's also was instrumental in trying to move the partnership with the region forward through the Regional Improvement Alliance, which she chaired for a while as well. So Helen, thank you very, very much, and you are more than welcome to cycle through the lovely village of Brood and stop at the cafe that you know what I'm talking about, and I'll be happy to join you for a coffee sometime. So thank you very much indeed.
Councillor Philip White, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So, Helen, I won't try and add some layers on too many of the points that other people have made. There are only a couple of things I want to say in addition. The first is, as a relatively new member of the council, I've been here 5 years, but as somebody who landed in a cabinet role as cabinet support member after 2.5 weeks, I was very grateful for the care you took to make sure that I was able to do my job properly from day one. And I still remember the briefing that you gave me, particularly running through the people who I'd be working with, and one officer who will remain nameless, where you advised me to look beyond the spectacular suits they'd be wearing and the extraordinary shoes and focus on the things they were saying. And I think the intellectual rigour that you've brought to your role in the time I've known you, and that desire to see beyond the obvious, and also to stick to your guns and say what you believe, whether or not I've always agreed with it, always makes for better decision making. And it's good challenge and good advice, and I've always been very grateful for that, whether at the time or a little bit later on. So thank you for that. I think actually that's mostly all that I can add. It's been a pleasure serving with you. I'm sure the miles on the bike will increase considerably, and I hope that your enjoyment of them will increase considerably as well. Happy retirement.
Leader of Council, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The retirement of someone from a career is something that's, we often just look at the last few years because that's the point at which we knew them. But actually Helen's career goes back much, much further than that. And I won't attempt to encapsulate it all, but it turns out that Helen and I have quite a few points of commonality, really. We're both graduates of the University of Liverpool, although we missed each other by a few years. We went to the same halls of residence, we know the same places, and we were grounded in that sort of common bond of having been to the same university. Her husband, Chris, runs or ran a bike shop called Bardsley Cycles in Stockport. And when I was a boy, I bought all the spare parts of my bicycle from Bardsley Cycles. Who knew? As everybody knows, Chris, Helen's husband, is a particularly avid cyclist, and Helen and Chris have a tandem. So I'm never quite sure whether Helen is a cyclist or a passenger. She keeps her own counsel on that, but I suspect passenger might be more the real situation. Helen has a mischievous streak, which has never left her, no matter how senior she's got in the county council. And that mischievous streak manifested itself on a cabinet away day many years ago. As everybody knows, Philip is marginally passionate about farms. As everybody knows, the county council has quite a farm estate. So I had one Mrs. Riley sitting next to me as we were talking about the budgets going, mention the farms, mention the farms. So I was young and naive at that point, and I went, have we considered the farms? At which point, Helen stepped back sniggering, and Philip exploded. So it was a moment of great hilarity and illustrated nicely, I think, Helen's mischievous streak. Retirement is not just about an end, it's about planning for the future. And it seems to me the trick to retirement is planning well for the future that lies ahead, because you've got many, many more years to go. And I know that Helen, going to spend some time resetting herself, has got plenty of ideas for the future. And I wish you luck with those ideas, because I know you're not going to retire into the background, and I know you will continue to add value wherever you go. So Helen, on behalf of Staffordshire County Council, on behalf of the people of Staffordshire, thank you very much indeed for all you've done. You've been a real asset. We'll miss you, okay, and all the best for the future.
Helen, from a chair, can I also repeat the words of the leader? Thank you for everything you've done. There are many people who haven't spoke, would have liked to spoke. I've sort of cut it a little bit short as time is going on, and people who aren't here. Everyone really has the same views of you for all the work you've done, so thank you very much. Enjoy your change of employment. I won't call it retirement, just change of employment. You'll go into something else, you'll get bored, and you'll carry on moving, so good luck for the future, whatever you do. Thank you. I move that the report be received. Is that agreed? Councillor Worthington, who's not here, so Councillor Trowbridge. Will you move the consideration report, please, at item 9?
Yes, I would like to move this report for the council to approve. May I speak, Mr. Chairman? Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the cross-party members who are on this panel. We was in absolute total agreement of the three chosen panel members, the new IRP, Independent Remuneration Panel, sorry, excuse me. So Ms Rowbotham, Mr Barnett and Mr Bowen will be on the Independent Remuneration Panel for the next 4 years. We, as the whole panel, had complete confidence in these new members. The difference of opinion between the three were huge. I am sure they are going to have very deep discussions over the remuneration and a good debate. I feel completely confident in this new panel, and I would also just like to thank Mrs Barnett for her contribution since 2018. I hope the rest of the council will agree with me and offer support. Thank you.
Could I ask somebody please to second this report? Thank you, Councillor Edgeler. It has been moved and seconded that the recommendation contained report be approved. Is that agreed? Councillor Alan White, will you move the consideration report, please, at item 10?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I move consideration of the Access to Information Rules, General Exceptions and Special Urgency Notices.
Thank you. Councillor Philip White, will you second?
Yes, I second the report and reserve the right to speak later in the debate, if there is one.
Nobody has asked to speak, so it has been moved and seconded that recommendation contained report be approved. Is that agreed? Report for Chairman of Staffordshire Police and Fire Crime Panel. Councillor Cox, will you move consideration of the report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I move the report for consideration for the Staffordshire Police Fire and Crime Panel, held on the 25th of April 2022. Thank you.
Councillor Spencer, please.
Chair, thank you. Could I just make a few points about the report? An incredibly comprehensive report. I think it covers everything from strip searching to nasal sprays, as I seem to recall. I just wanted to mention the bottom of the first page, and something that looks quite insignificant is this focus around reducing offending. And I'm sure most people would think, well, that's what the police do. But police forces up and down this country haven't done that for the best part of a decade. It's very difficult to achieve, and I think we should commend the Commissioner and the Office for actually taking this on. It will be a challenging thing to achieve, and as crime numbers are reported every year, there is an obvious view about whether that has been achieved or not. I think it is typical of the new Commissioner's approach, and I think he is to be commended for taking on that brave step. I think it's slightly disappointing with the Peel report. Peel reports are the police equivalent of like a school Ofsted, if you like, and to have any criticism is taken to heart, particularly as in this report if it's about the weakness in investigations, because that's what the police do. Of course, they investigate things, so anything like that will hit home quite hard. I was reassured, though, to see that there is a plan to address that as we move forward. The final thing really is just a plea to the panel that at the bottom of the second page, you will see it talks about the reviews of stop and search. Stop and search, I know, is a controversial issue to some people. The review started in 2017 under the premiership of Theresa May, and they've run in all forces for the last 5 years, including here in Staffordshire. To my knowledge, Staffordshire has always returned an exemplary set of results, and actually, rather than find problems with stop and search here, 9 times out of 10 we find action that is commended by those police officers. Also, members may be aware that on Monday of this week, the current Home Secretary has reviewed all of the studies around stop and search and come to the conclusion that she's given it a completely clean bill of health. Not only that, she's broadened the scope of stop and search and also reduced the amount of authority that's needed to use it, in particular what's called Section 60. I think given all of that, I just ask, and it's a plea to the panel if I could, that since we've had 5 years of doing this, and now that the Home Secretary is happy with that, we do have other priorities here in Staffordshire. And while Staffordshire is nowhere on the national crime statistics high list, in my own area, we are suffering in inverted commas, from high levels of burglary dwelling house and theft of vehicles. Again, I emphasise that wouldn't be high in a national setting. And of course, I've heard several percentages this morning about how much of Staffordshire is rural. I think it went from 65% to 80%. And we have that issue around rural crime. None of those things are addressed in this report. And I just wondered that perhaps, given the recent statement of the Home Secretary, I just wondered whether there was an opportunity to perhaps divert some of that effort and energy that we put into reviewing stop and search and actually tackling some of those issues that are really important to local people, burglary vehicle crime and rural crime, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Derry Cookfield, please.
Can I just say, Mr. Chairman, I mean, we've got a gentleman there, the Crime Commissioner, Mr. Ben Adams. And can I just say, I think that was one of the best things I did, was when I put my cross by his name. I think he's been there for 12 months, and at this moment in time, he's doing a wonderful job. And it's so easy, and nobody's worse than me for criticising. And people criticise a lot that goes on, but they don't look into the background exactly what it is all about. Right, and when you come to look at this gentleman, he isn't one of those sort of people that sit in an office all day, right, and he has somebody else do the work, and he has his secretaries, right, to take all the flack. He's one of those sort of people that go out on the streets. And can I just say, I was really pleased, right, that he went into, and I keep calling it, Little Newcastle, because he was in our area and he was talking to people, right, and to me, that's fantastic. And when we can get somebody like that, right, representing us and know, right, that they're representing us properly, right, I think we ought to give him all the credit under the sun. And that's the problem today. When people do things, right, people don't seem to give them the credit for it, right, and praise them up for it. They're always there to pick on something that they do wrong, right, and they jump down the throats and he's a waste of time, this, that, and yet really they don't really understand what the job is really all about. Right, and I think, Mr. Chairman, we ought to start publicising more about what these people really do. And I'm really proud to stand here today, right, and say thank you very much to Mr. Ben Adams for what he's doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Angela, please.
Thank you, Chairman. You're absolutely right, Derek. And I've sat on this police crime panel now since it was first started with Matthew Ellis. And Ben is like a fresh air. And I really do agree with what he's saying. But can I just give you, all councillors, a gentle reminder that the police crime panel is a public meeting. And anybody that's got a question or anything, put it in writing and give it to, who's the office now in charge, Richard. Pass it on to them and it will be brought up at that meeting, and you can actually come in person and actually put your question to Ben Adams in person. And I keep saying this, to the public. You know, if you've got a question, please bring it and put it forward. And so it's just a gentle reminder to tell everybody, you know, that if you've got a question, please bring it to the panel. Because I think of all the time I've sat on this panel now, we've had probably 5 questions in all those years from the public and that, you know, so it's good that people have got that opportunity to be able to come and voice their opinions and ask the questions. And you will either get a written answer or a verbal answer from Ben. But the other thing I just wanted to mention again, on page 41, halfway down, it talks about mental health of prisoners, and it was quite interesting that I was talking to the new prison governor at Stafford Prison, and I'm going to meet him with our MP in a few weeks' time to discuss all that their work they're doing within the prison service at Stafford with mental health, and we might be able to pick up some good ideas from that, how we can help other people. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Graham Hutton, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was told that improving 999 response was a very important part of the current Police Crime Commissioner's strategy with the Chief Constable. But I see no mention of improving 999 services in this report. So I'd ask the panel to press the Commissioner on why, if 999 is a priority, why it's not in this. Thank you.
Leader of Council.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to pay tribute to the panel and indeed the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner for choosing Louise Clayton as the new Chief Executive of the office. For those of you who don't know, Louise Clayton is formerly of this parish, one of our officers who's leaving us to go and do the job on promotion. She has been an outstanding officer of the council, delivered excellent services on behalf of the people of the county. She will be a major asset to the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, and to Councillor Huckfield's point, if with Louise Clayton, the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner is actually able to get a grip of the circumstances around the office, then I'm sure that things will improve for the police service across the county.
Councillor Cox, do you want to...
Thank you, Chairman. The points that were raised on rural crime, Mr Spencer, is absolutely important, and the Commissioner is well and truly on board with rural crime, because he doesn't get away from me raising it. Maybe at this particular meeting it went by the way on the actual his update, and I could go along with Graham there. The 999, more importantly 101, is a very concern to the Commissioner and the Chief Constable actually, so they actually are working on that, so I can assure you that is the case. But the comments will be taken on board and the work programme will be going on. We do actually have more meetings than previous ones, I believe. It seems that way. Yeah, that's, those comments will be taken on board. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I move that the report be received. Is that agreed? Councillor Alan White, can you please move the nominations of the group leader for the appointment of members of a committee?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I move the nominations for the appointments of members of committees. Mr Chairman, if I might say just before I, hopefully not open it up to debate, it's quite a tricky thing to do, get this sorted out. Look at Councillor Atkins. He now looks very relaxed in his chair, doesn't have to worry about any of this stuff. He's actually falling asleep. There will be a few... There may well be a few things that need tweaking around the edges as we move forward, but I'm all tense. Councillor Atkins is now relaxed. I wait with bated breath for comments back from members of council about where I may have tripped up. But with that, Mr Chairman, hand it back.
Having done it for 8 years at Cannock, I know it's a very tricky job. Councillor Alan White, sorry, Philip White, will you please second?
I second the motion, and I'll reserve the right to speak in any debate that there is.
I move that the proposal be noted. Is that agreed? Agreed. Appointment of Chairman and Vice Chairman of committees and panels. Councillor Alan White, can you please move for your nomination for the appointment of Chairman and Vice Chairman of committees and panels?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I move the appointment of Chairman and Vice Chairman of committees and panels.
Seconded, Chair.
Let me read it. agreed. Appointment of members to outside bodies. Councillor Alan White, can you please move your nomination for the appointment of members to outside bodies?
It's a return of enthusiasm, Mr. Chairman. I move the nominations for the appointment of members to outside bodies. Just say, before I move on this, outside bodies move and evolve all the time. For those of you that are appointed to outside bodies, you know the constitutional changes that take place within those bodies, myself less so. So if there are changes within those outside bodies that need to be reflected on this list, please do come back to me and we'll make the necessary amendments.
Sorry. Members, the 5 question and answers have been circulated to members and published on our website. In accordance with the usual procedure, the questions and answers will be taken as read. I will allow each question 5 minutes in which to ask a supplementary question and to receive an answer. No debate allowed on the questions. Number 1, Councillor Pritchard to Councillor David Williams. Not present. Councillor 2, Councillor Perdesi to Councillor Price.
Thank you, Chair. Can I seek assurance, Chair, that all our schools are safe, dry and warm so that our young people are learning in the best possible physical environment?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I can give you that assurance, and I also gave quite a detailed response on this in question 4 on the Leader's Statement. Thank you.
Councillor Aftar to Councillor Sutton, please.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations on your appointment and the Deputy's appointment. A bit late, but never mind. Right, just a supplementary. I'll just write to the member for the reply, just to identify with me the universal services and targeted services in my division. So, thank you.
And I'll happily reply to that. I thought the question was he was going to write to me about the details in his area, so I'm happy to reply to that.
Councillor Schultz-Atkins to Councillor Tagg.
Thank you for that response. I hope the County Council will continue to promote the importance of hedgerows and work with partners to ensure their protection, because I think there are a number of issues being raised by my constituents and concerned about cutting back of hedgerows, particularly during nesting season, and that's seen very much as vandalism locally, and I just hope that the County Council will monitor what's going on. Thank you.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I confirm that. And of course, we have signed a nature recovery declaration, which means we're working in partner with not only the local authorities, but landowners in general. So I agree with that point.
Councillor Hussain to Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. I'm grateful to the Cabinet member for the reply. Mr. Chairman, it's not a crunch, it's not a challenge, it's a crisis. People are genuinely, especially who are living under the breadline, they're facing this. And I commend the continuous effort of our volunteers who are day in, day out helping them in the soup kitchen, food bank, and also in the local community center. I'm sure so many members in this chamber as well, they're also doing their very best to help those organizations as well. And there is no doubt, and nobody is saying you are doing nothing. Yes, you are doing so many things. In addition, all I want, please do speak to those organizations and explore further how we can work in partnership with them and to face those unforeseen situations. Mr. Chairman, truth to tell, 10% the inflation, and it's coming more. It is a question, it's our ability to feed ourselves. So I urge again, please do acknowledge what's going on the ground and I'm sure we can explore further and across the party and with the public, member of the public, we can make a difference in Staffordshire. We want to make this place the best place to grow up and best place to grow old. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Sutton, please.
Thank you. I think the comment you make about the volunteers that work particularly hard within Staffordshire, you know, I would absolutely echo that. There's some people around the county doing tremendous things in volunteering across the whole of the piece. I outlined very much earlier the household support fund that we're operating, and that with other funds that we have distributed almost £17 million worth of support throughout the year. And you know, a lot of that has been done, the organisation of that has been done through the children's centres, and the staff at the children's centres work hard, and they work with local volunteers, and they work with different organisations. And whenever this funding comes forward, I work with officers to see what it is possible to do. So I bear in mind completely the comments that the member officer made.
Thank you. Does any member have a petition they wish to present? Thank you. Item 17 excludes the public. There are no public and there is no business to be dealt with. Yes, we have reported, but there is no business to be dealt with under that item. So I will now call the end for council. Thank you very much for everybody being here. But of course, we're now going to that most enjoyable meeting afterwards, if as many as long as possible could remain. The members' club will follow immediately after this meeting. So I now cease the council meeting. We'll have a break, perhaps of 30 seconds, and the leader then will start the next meeting.